Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hello, Salty. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me
Cool.
okay?
I sure can.
Hold on. All right. I had a little echo going on. I think I got it fixed. So, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing. Nothing a lot. I'm just doing.
I hear you. There is so much. So, we had an off day in the Delphi hearings. In the Delphi trial jury selection, we had a break between jury selection and jury implementation, right? So the jury was selected Monday and Tuesday. Today was a day off, and it still feels exhausting.
I know, right? I guess they're going to be sworn in tomorrow, and then trials slated to start Friday morning, or opening arguments, I guess, Monday or Friday morning, from what I've seen. I
Yes,
haven't seen anything different today come out about that.
I haven't either. Um, I think there may be some motions that are heard tomorrow, in addition to the jury being sworn in, and then the jury is uh, the jury is going to be sequestered in or around Carroll County. Carroll County doesn't have hotels, motels, B&B, Airbnbs, VRBOs. So obviously they're putting them up in probably Lafayette, I would guess, probably in a hotel in Lafayette, which is 16, 17 people. So that's got to be, I mean, do you put them up in rooms together? Like, do you put females with female? Do you pair females up with females, males with males, or do you give them each their own individual room?
That's, I would, well, I wouldn't want to stay with strangers that I don't know, not saying that they're going to be crazy,
Yeah,
but I mean, you already asking a lot of people to take a month out of their lives to sit on
right.
this jury and then have to be transported, each and every time to court. Yeah, that's a lot. Then you want to say, oh, by the way, you got to bunk with strangers. Like, what? You didn't tell me that during questioning.
Right.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like they got told some, they didn't get told some other things because after four of the jurors were selected, they were recused. So
Yeah, I don't know the circumstances behind those recusals, but I know there were some sort of issues that they addressed or something.
right, one was like a medical issue, one was like a mother that couldn't find childcare for her children. So why didn't they sort through that before they even got her appointed to the jury is mind-boggling to me. But
Well,
lots of
so many
things.
things yeah, there's so many
Yeah,
mind-boggling things, it doesn't even surprise me
yeah.
that happened.
My ex used to say mind-boggling. That would
Yeah.
crack me up. No, mind-boggling. Uh, um,
Well, she did make a couple of rulings today, this morning.
yes, yes, I have seen that, and Bob Mata actually had a comment on that from a lawyer's perspective that was very interesting.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
so the ruling was on the offer of proof for third party witnesses. The one that I saw, the one that was to me most impactful, and that was she would allow the defense to present evidence of the third parties, but only as it pertains to the offer of proof. So, in other words, that seems to me like that's going to not be in front of the jury. Like they're going to get to a point in the trial where the defense wants to present third party arguments, and they're going to say, "Okay, judge, we have an offer of proof," and the judge is going to say, "Okay, you already presented this, but go ahead and present it again, and I'm going to rule the same way as I did last time." And that preserves for them the right on appeal to appeal that, but that doesn't, in my mind, according to what Bob Mata said earlier today, that doesn't actually help the defense in this trial. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't understand it. I mean, I guess they can introduce their their evidence, but outside of the jury being present, which like is that so that Judge Gull can decide, okay, you can bring this in and we'll move forward, and the jury's gonna, because if the jury's never going to hear it, what is the point? So I guess Judge Gull will have to decide if this. Because my understanding, they were going to be able to present some newer evidence or whatever, if you want to call it that. What that is, I don't know. And then it's still going to be up to her to decide if what they bring forward to show proof of their evidence is going to even be allowed in front of the jury. It's just gotten, it's crazy to me that. Um, So I guess she's going to allow them to bring it up at some point, and and then let her decide if they can move forward with it in front of the jury. Because if it's all done outside the jury, there's not even a point doing it,
Right.
in my opinion. I mean, what is the point? Judge Gull doesn't care. She's
The
not going to.
point, the point is, so the point is on appeal. So the point is that
Well,
as
I get
long,
that, but
yeah,
there's so many things they already have lined up they could appeal this case on. I mean, the entire case is grounds for appeal, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of. I get so aggravated with courts and court systems, and we're supposed to tolerate it and put up with it, and then all these millions of dollars are spent here and spent there and there and there, and for what? This like this all should be held in public. Present your damn evidence and let's get on with it. Why do we got to fight all this ridiculousness out when we already pretty much know how this lady's going to rule? It's crazy.
yeah, and I think the definition of in public, I think, is something that should be examined, especially in the state of Indiana right now, because in 17, 18, 1900s, in public meant just that the press was allowed into the trial so they could report in their printed newspapers that whatever was going on in the trial, and then the next morning or 2 mornings or 3 mornings later they could read about it in their paper that got delivered to their front step. And even in the 70s and 80s, yes, we had television and we had TV reports on trials, but we didn't often have television cameras inside of court. I think one of the ones that would be a big divergence from that would be Collier Lander's case. That was the one in Ohio where the doctor murdered his wife, and the son remembered hearing the events go down that night, and he was called into the case, and that was actually partially televised.
Yeah,
But that was an exception to the rule. Nowadays, we have the technological ability to have a camera with good audio and good video in every single courtroom in America. There is no excuse. And if you go onto Indiana court live streams, you will at the most see 4 to 5 superior courts on camera at a time at any given day across the state of Indiana. Indiana has like 92 counties. So that means they have at least 92 superior courts. And there's at the most 4 of them that are being televised. That's the definition of public, of a trial being tried, of a defendant being tried publicly, has changed significantly over the last 25 years. Significantly.
yeah, it really has. But I don't know what Indiana's got the crazy rules and not even doing the audio either. So I don't know their history on all their, what they allow and don't allow. But I guess it's par for the course for them.
Well, it's on a case by case basis. Like
Yeah,
every single case that comes up before the court, if the media is interested in it, they file a motion to have cameras in the courtroom. And 99% of the time, judges in Indiana deny that motion. Like that, the one that is really heartbreaking to me is the one here in Lafayette that happened back in August, September, August. of the 3-month-old Jacob Monius, whose Haitian immigrant father is accused of drowning him in a bucket of liquid laundry detergent and trying to beat his wife to death with a tire iron.
That case is
And
crazy.
it is. It's a crazy case. And why would you deny having cameras in there? And the court has done it twice. They did it for the initial hearings, and once again back about a month and a half ago, the local media outlets applied for cameras in the court again, and they were denied again.
I don't know why Indiana does that. I mean, we see so many trials from all over the country, different, we watch them on court TV. We can watch them on our local, I can watch Florida courts live. We can watch Idaho courts live. We just can't see Indiana. So Indiana is like okay with being behind in the times and being in the dark with everything they do. But I guess until the people of Indiana stand up and say no more, because we've had to do that in Florida multiple times. Florida didn't always just have these free and easy laws, just like our overhaul of the DCF, the DCF, Department of Children and Families. We had kids coming up missing in the state of Florida's care for 2 years, and with no one knowing they were missing. And then when they figure it out, like, oh, well, the child's not even with us anymore. She was killed by foster family members. It was like a whole thing. And finally, the public's like, wait a minute, what? And they forced to change. And now Florida has implemented new things, and look at our sunshine law compared to everybody else in the country. We are the leader in the sunshine laws. Every state calls it their sunshine law. They adopted the law, but they didn't keep it as broad as and open as Florida has it. So, being from here and knowing what all is available, it's kind of shocking that it's not that way everywhere else, and I've had to get used to that. But Indiana's the only place that I know of that is just damn well determined to not let you have a thing. But Judge Gull has, well, actually, it's not a Judge Gull ruling. There's a tweet earlier, about 45 minutes ago to an hour ago. Um, the Judge Gull has ruled on a request from WTHR and other media to release trial exhibits. She will allow some pretrial exhibits to be released in Fort Wayne next Tuesday, and exhibits introduced during the trial will be available at the end of each trial day. And there's the order for that came down as well. The order or judgment of the court, and it stipulates it all in there. Like I just saw this a little bit ago. Um,
So do you think she is actually maybe feeling some pressure from all of the huge public scrutiny that's along with this? Like if this was going on with 1/100th of the amount of publicity that's going on, do you think that she would have made the same ruling?
I don't know. There's another judge involved because the order literally says the court has obtained the services of a senior judge to supervise the review of those exhibits which are accessible to the media. The senior judge, Judge Marianne Voorhees, has indicated she will make the exhibits available to the media on Tuesday, the 22nd, at 10 a.m. in the Allen County Courthouse. And then the media is demanding access to the exhibits, which will be introduced at trial. At the conclusion of each trial day, the court will allow the media access to those exhibits for 15 minutes. What? So media has to get in there, can review those exhibits for 15 full minutes, get all their notes and whatever they're allowed to do in there, and then go compile their reports for their broadcast.
And that's only traditional media. That's the large stream
Yes.
media, the mainstream
Yeah.
media. That's not
Coalition.
YouTubers, social media. Nobody like that is getting allowed in there, as
No.
far as I know.
It's going to be like like in Idaho and other places, the coalition files and the media coalition, and it's the same type of thing here. And if I'm not mistaken, the lady, one of the higher ups over there at that station, WTHR, is like heading this up. I can't remember her name. I saw it earlier today. Cindy someone, but yes. So it's for um, the News Media Coalition's motion to inspect trial exhibits. So yeah, it's a formal media thing. Not just YouTubers can't just go in there and review. But
Right.
at least they'll be able to and can report back. It's I just was looking back at that document. I noticed something. The court would note that this murder case is one of over 300 pending cases in this court's docket, with approximately 30 of those cases being murder cases. Damn, Indiana. Y'all a murderous state or what?
I don't know if we can compare with Florida though.
Yeah, I'm so used. That's a lot of murder trials at one time.
Yeah,
We got
that
Sarah
is.
Boone.
And what's not funny about that, but what's interesting about that is, I mean, she's guilty as heck of zipping her boyfriend up in a suitcase and hitting him with a baseball bat a couple of times or more than a couple of times. But what is the actual crime that she's guilty of? Is it second degree murder? Is there spousal abuse syndrome or whatever Florida's version of that is? Uh,
Florida's been known to be very strict about that law. Like it's not easy just to walk in there and say I'm a victim of abuse,
right,
and
as
that's
we
why I
saw
do
with
that. Now,
with
if
the
it
blood.
occurred, if
Yeah.
it occurred while you were being abused in like a self-defense, that's different. But to zip somebody in the suitcase and sit there and say that's on you when they say they can't breathe. I mean there was no anxiety in her voice. There was no fright in her voice or fear of that man at that point. He was zipped up in the suitcase and she was literally just, oh well, you know.
Yeah, now you know how I feel is what she said. I think something like that.
Yeah.
Or now
Well,
you know how I
they're
felt.
both guilty of a level of abuse and alcoholism that just irritates me to no end with men and women. Like I don't get it why y'all want to be that way and do that stuff to each other, but you got to pay the piper eventually.
Yes.
But
So let's go back and think about, and I have spent literally like 2 hours trying to find the very beginning news articles on this case, just talking about the original, you know, what did we first hear about Abby and Libby? What were the first initial news reports when they were missing and when the search parties went out and when they were found? And I think we can all remember that, especially those of us that were in, that community or surrounding communities, especially. It was very impactful. Um, and there's just so many out there, and so many of them have been updated recently that it's hard to find the original videos to those.
yeah.
But what did we first hear? We first heard they were missing,
Hmm.
and then we heard the next day they were found murdered.
Yeah.
And then we heard the state police didn't want to release any details about the murders for fear that they would screw up the investigation.
Yeah, and they had the PCA was sealed for like a month, and the
Right.
media had to fight to get that unsealed because a PCA, a probable cause updated, David, is a matter of public record. So that means the public, Judge Gold, not just you and a few attorneys. But that's not how she saw it, I guess.
Right. And then they released the sketch of Brad, of Bridge Guy, right? Of old Bridge Guy.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Well, didn't the video come out first?
yes. So let's take a quick look at that. Let me get through the ad. I think we should be
Okay.
through it in about 3 seconds. No, we got to have two ads for 10 seconds. All right, so we're going to look at the Inside Edition report that was early on in this case.
America is a nation of detectives today, trying to identify the suspect in this photo and this voice. The grainy image and that haunting audio were recorded by 14-year-old Liberty German on her cell phone. She also shot this last photo of her best friend, 13-year-old Abigail Williams. Abigail and Liberty were found murdered near this creek on a hiking trail in Indiana on Valentine's Day. We played the audio for people in Delphi, Indiana, population just 3,000.
Somebody knows this voice. Somebody has to know who this guy is. We are begging you to come up and to come forward.
The release of the audio has triggered more than 1,000 tips. Citizen sleuths, including Nancy Grace, are offering their theories about the killer.
We hear that muffled down the hill, down the hill. Why was it muffled? Because I think she put it in her pocket.
Stephen Fabian followed the final footsteps of the killer and his victims down the hill.
This is the bridge that we've all seen in the images released to the media. You can see now some flowers left behind in memory of the girls. We do know that the girls were found on this side of the creek, about a quarter of the mile in this direction. So when we're hearing down the hill,
Hold on. He pointed to his right. So that means he's on the north side of the bridge. Because if you're on the northwest side of the bridge and you point to your right, that's where the girls were found. Let's look at that one more time.
Okay.
Just in light of what we talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
about a quarter of the mile in this direction. So when we're hearing down the hill on that recording, they could have been led in.
No, they were led down the south side of it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page with that.
Yeah.
In this direction, down this hill. And once you start going down the hill, you can sort of see all the different paths that they maybe were forced to go down. You can also hear that same crunching of the leaves that we're hearing in the recording. The further away you get from the trail, you also can start to feel how isolated it is.
There are several intriguing theories police are working on. Could there be two killers? This may explain why neither of the girls was able to get away. Does the killer live nearby? He seems to know the woods and back roads.
Could there be two killers? Interesting. And we know now that that's what law enforcement thought. That's what the FBI thought. That's what ISP thought. And that's what everybody but Holman apparently thought.
Was the killer recently released from prison?
I don't think this is the first time he's done something like this.
Veteran New York Homicide Detective Sergeant Joe Giacalone is following.
Okay, I got to stop there too. He says, I don't think this is the first time somebody like this has done this. What is Rick Allen's criminal history?
None. Some speeding tickets. And I reviewed somebody else this morning doing a psychological profile on the killer. And I was kind of floored. I'm like, what? We don't even know if it's the guy. As you know, I can profile, say, for instance, Koberger, and I can see there's stuff in his background. But that doesn't mean he did anything, right? So it just lends a hand to, if he's found guilty, you can look back and say, well, there's this history. Well, there's none with Rick Allen. The only thing, and it was pointed out on that live I watched this morning, and I forget, it was before, 2017, 2015, I think it was, there was that one call to Allen's home. And when the police got there, he was apparently highly intoxicated, but they didn't arrest him. It was some sort of domestic situation, and they told his wife to take him to the hospital for an exam to make sure he was okay. So if she was frightened of her husband or claiming he had been abusive to her, I don't think, she could have said, well, I don't want to file charges, but then they were like, okay, we'll take him to the hospital for evaluation. What came of that, we don't know. But if that is a one-time incident, a lot of people had to go get checked if they have I don't know what was going on at their house that day. I wasn't there. But whatever did occur is a one-time deal, and there's no history of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to watch that profile of somebody I respected earlier, knowing that their partner there didn't quite feel the same way, was kind of good. But still, I was like, man, he just broke one day and decided, I'm going to act on all these fantasies I've had for years, and I'm going to go look for a crime opportunity out here on the trail today. See,
right, and not just one, but two victims And granted, they were teenagers, but Libby was not much smaller than him in height and weight. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that defy common sense in the state's theory on this.
The case.
He was following them for a while. And I think that's why she was able to snap this picture, because if you notice, he's looking down, he's not even paying attention. She realized maybe something's wrong, and then she snapped this blurry video.
All right.
So did the iPhone 6 have a front and rear facing camera? Like most phones do these days. I don't know. I don't own an iPhone. My kids do. I'm an Android person. So my question now is, and I've never asked this, does the iPhone 6 have a front and rear facing camera? Does anybody know?
I have no idea. That's a good question. And actually, that's a very appropriate question for figuring out exactly how it went down. Like, was he coming from the north end of the bridge, or was he waiting for them at the south end of the bridge? And in my mind, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, because if she turned to face Abby to take that picture, but he's coming up behind them, in my mind, this dude's already crossed that bridge and is down there on that south end, and then starts walking toward them coming from the north. If she turns around to face Abby to take that picture, can she then turn around and hit record and record that guy coming up behind her? And then by the time he gets up on them, that phone goes into her pocket. That's all I can think, because there's nobody behind Abby. And I don't buy that this guy could have just ran down that bridge super fast to catch them without tripping and busting his ass. I don't care how many times you crossed it.
Right. But what we saw in that video was that a whole bunch of internet sleuths were born to try and solve this case.
Well, I don't think it takes. Yeah.
Even Nancy Grace.
Well, I've been watching Nancy do her song and dance for 30 years. But in my mind, I don't think it takes a genius or a detective to understand that image that we see of Abby and that long bridge behind her. There's nobody on it. Everybody goes on and on about how high the bridge is, how long the bridge is. So tell me how somebody came from the north side and came up on them that fast. It just casually walking. If you go by the time the picture was snapped to the time they were told to go down that hill, allegedly time they were told to go, it makes no sense to me. So I tried to figure out, where would he have been in relation to that picture when it was taken?
Right.
That's important.
I think me and a lot of other internet sleuths were trying to figure out not where he was, but who he was. And
I want to know where he was, because I feel like that's important. Who he is damn well important. But when I've always said, when I look at that picture, where is this person behind her?
Right.
He had to be behind Libby as she was facing Abby.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people who are trying to figure out who it was, like me, went in and did, like, we went to the Indiana Sex Offender Registry, and we were like, all right, who lives in Delphi that's on the Sex Offender Registry Act and our Sex Offender Registry list? And when we were looking at those people, a lot of these internet sleuths were taking that sketch that we were given a bridge guy and being like, could this be mistaken for bridge guy? Could this guy be mistaken for bridge guy?
Oh yeah, I think that's natural, because anytime a missing kids case pops off that I'm looking at, I'm going straight to the registry. Because I'm signed up for the FDLE in Florida, or I get an email every time one moves within a 5-mile radius of me. And I'm in the country, in a rural area, but I got one just the other day. It was for a lady. I was surprised. I was like, oh damn, and she don't live that far. Now I know where she's at. But that's it. As a internet sleuth, I get whatever. I'm just a true crime buff, been watching this stuff for longer than my kids have been alive, and my oldest ones were in their mid-30s. So yeah, I'm going to go look at the registry first, like I did in Sebastian Rogers' case and Madeline Soto's, and with this one, and you, of course, it's natural instinct to try to put pictures beside the sketch because that's why they released the damn sketch.
Right.
For us to
Yeah.
make comparisons and look. Now they're gonna get mad at us and tell us to quit doing that on the internet.
Exactly. Let's
Don't tell me what to do.
look at that. Let's look at that directive now.
Okay.
Here we go. This is an article in the Lafayette Journal and Courier. So Lafayette is in Tippecanoe County. That's the county south of Carroll County, and 25 minutes, 30 minutes south. Delphi murders. Sheriff pleads stop posting side-by-side photos of suspects and the new sketch. So all of us internet sleuths were going boom, 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 boom. And I honestly don't think I did exactly that. I don't know that I was technologically capable of that then. What I did as an internet sleuth. So I took that picture of bridge guy who is kind of in mid-step coming across the bridge. And I took what I know to be the average width of a railroad tie. And I took that and I turned it sideways 90 degrees next to his body. And I said, okay, this guy seems to be about 5'8" plus or minus 3 inches, depending upon the average width of the railroad tie. And that's actually what they ended up releasing. But they didn't do that based on my internet sleuthing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who've tried to figure out how tall that guy was based on the video. And, according to the recent filings or when he was transferred over to the county, he's 5'5". He's barely taller than I am.
Right.
Which we've all known all along the guy wasn't that tall.
Yes.
And, I know that it's going to be hard to look at that video and really determine how exactly the height of this guy. I'm more focused on his image and the build, the face and the build, and in my head, I'm going to be, he's not super tall.
Right.
But I'm the last person you should ask, how tall do you think they were? Because I'm not going to get it right. I'm not. I'm telling you right now. I'll be like, well, he's about that much taller than me. Well, you pick a number, but that one I'll show you with my hand. I'll be like Doug Carter for a minute, use my hands. He's that much taller than me. Now you figure out how tall that is.
I think Bob Mata put it a good way last night. He's like, when you walk into a bar, he's the shortest dude in the bar. Like there are guys that are 5'7", 5'8", 6 foot, 6'2", 6'5". He's the shortest guy.
I'm going to tell you, my grandfather was a powerhouse of a man, but my grandfather was no taller than Rick Allen. My grandfather put up fences for a living. They have him in the newspaper when you're standing on a 5-gallon bucket to do the top rail of a taller fence than he was. But people didn't mess with my grandfather. My grandfather was a military man. He was strong. And people didn't see a height deficit when they looked at him. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Just because you're short or a little dumpy doesn't mean you're not strong or capable. Just like little tiny me, you better fear me. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty petite.
My grandpa was the same way. My grandpa was probably 5'6", 5'7". He had a barrel chest, and he was a welder on the USS Enterprise in World War II. And when he came back to Northern Indiana, he opened up his own welding shop and ran that till the day he died. But yeah, he was tough too. I think I saw this morning that Rick Allen also spent some time in the military. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, years. I think it was 9 years total. The record's out there. People have already looked it up, and it was talked about a long time ago. People didn't want to hear it because they got the right guy and he's confessing. But Rick Allen did serve our country, like a lot of people did. But that doesn't mean just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're a great person either. I can look at it both ways. There are a lot of guys out there who commit crimes all the time that were once military.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of guys who weren't in the military that commit crimes and horrendous crimes. Yeah.
But I think people want to lend it. I think because it just gives you a profile of the individual, like what kind of training he may have had in his past to be able to do certain things. You know what I mean? Like kill proficiently. But that wasn't that type of kill that we saw that we're hearing about happened.
Right. He didn't fight the Viet Cong in Nam.
Yeah.
He wasn't Rambo.
Yeah, I don't know about how much training he had as far as training to kill and all those kinds of things, but from what we're hearing of that crime scene, it wasn't a well-trained killer that knew exactly where to cut to kill. I mean, we all got a pretty good idea of where to do it at, but I'm saying, you know what I mean? There's training and then there's non-training.
Okay, well, trigger warning, Libby was killed with 3 separate slits to her throat,
Yes.
cutting both carotids in the jugular.
Yeah. And if you look at the search warrant return, they got a lot of knives out of Rick Allen's house. Why use a box cutter? Allegedly.
Because
that
it
baffles me.
because it ties to CVS. That's a tie to CVS.
Well, yeah, I get that. I've also heard the rumors of, not a rumor. Let me restate that. I know of a creator and 2 of them, and one of their theories is Rick Allen was meeting Betsy Blair out there because they were having an affair. How do y'all know that? They don't. They're speculating. And I had never, and that was not like a public, that wasn't said in a stream. It was said somewhere else. But when it was said, I was like, oh, wow, we're reaching now. We're really reaching. But so, yeah, if the box cutter thing to me makes no sense. That's maybe all you had in your pocket that day. But chances are, if you're the kind of guy who collects knives or has knives, look, the men in my family all carry a knife. They're hunters. 9 times out of 10, one of them's got a pocket knife on him or some sort of knife somewhere, you know. So I'm like, well, would Rick Allen just have a little switchblade in his pocket? Is he that kind of guy? Out for a walk, got my knife in my pocket.
Okay, well
There's one in my purse.
that boils down to the discussion about, was this premeditated or was it spontaneous?
Okay.
Do you spontaneously take a gun to the Monon High Bridge
Yeah.
and spontaneously pull it out on 2 teenage girls and tell them to go down the hill so you can slit their throat? Is that spontaneous?
No, not in my opinion.
Hell, no, not at all. Not in anybody's reasonable opinion.
Now look, there's people all around me that live out here. They carry. Florida's a carry. You can carry your gun. So I know people personally who always have one on them. So to me, it's not an odd thing for someone to have one. But in this particular crime, if that's what was used to force them down the hill and to control them, then you have to wonder, was it premeditated? But they haven't shown any links to show that yet, that it was, if it's him.
No, there's no way. You don't. Okay, so say you are a sexual predator. So say in the worst case scenario, Rick Allen is a sexual predator and he has urges that he has a hard time controlling.
Yeah.
And maybe he has acted on those in the past and he's just never been caught. Then all of a sudden he sees this cute young blonde teenage girl coming across the bridge towards him, and he just happens to be carrying his gun while he's checking his stock ticker on his phone, looking at fishes down the bridge. And he decides to pull it out on her, and because she's with her friend Libby, he forces them down the hill.
You had to know they were going to be out there. Well, here's the whole thing about this premeditation bullshit. In my opinion, you had to know those girls were going to be there. If they were legit your targets, or if you were just out looking for a free, let me go explore and see what happens. I'm ready to do this, and if I get the opportunity, I'm taking it. But if you were actually targeting those girls, then you knew they were going to be there, and you knew they were going to be on that bridge. So the communication that supposedly was going on Libby's phone, are they still waiting on the extractions to give us that communication? They don't got to give it to me, but law enforcement needs it. And then apparently was communicating with Keegan Klein the night before and the morning of. That should all be evidence on that phone. Anybody she communicated with via text or phone call, the phone call log would be there. The text messages would be there. Meet me out at the bridge. Can you get a ride? Where's that stuff at? So was it just a random kill? I got
Right.
lucky today and found me 2 girls on the bridge.
I just
And
changed my
I got
audio.
lucky and didn't get arrested for 5 years on top of that. Damn.
I just changed my audio. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I switched to a different mic because Butterfly said I was having problems with my other one. Is this one good too? No? All right, I'm going to switch back.
She said it was all good.
Can you hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Just
Yeah.
making sure. All right.
Yes.
Good deal. Okay, so let's finish reading this article because this one is, that's why I titled this What's Good for the Goose, because what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander if you're talking to the state. If you're talking to Superintendent Doug Carter or Prosecutor Nick McClellan. Investigators have warned before against amateur sleuthing in the February 2017 murders of Abby Williams and Liberty German. Speculation over a new suspect sketch means renewed pleas. A week after ISP released the newest public clues into the investigation of Abby and Libby, the Carroll County Sheriff was sounded a familiar warning to amateur sleuths. Please stop posting side-by-side pictures of people you think did this. You are ruining innocent people's lives. Before posting a side-by-side, imagine that is your son, brother, or father. If you have a tip, we have given you the proper way to report it. So I'm just going to reemphasize that one more time because we're getting ready to watch a video that is what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander. Please stop posting side-by-side pictures of people you think did this. You think did this. You are ruining innocent people's lives. So let's go look at that. Let's go look at, well, it may take us 2 videos to get there. Let's do the investigation 2 years later first. So this is 2 years later after Libby and Abby were murdered. Their killer is still out there. I just had to put that in there. It's just so sobering. All right. So we know that there was a second sketch released in 2017 or 2019, 2 years later. And we didn't see an arrest until 5 years later.
Yeah.
And after pleading for the public not to post sketches that they had released, then they they did an interview with WRTV. Let's take a look at that interview with WRTV.
In the murders of Delphi teenagers Abby Williams and Libby German is going into the state's custody for safety reasons. Court records show the Carroll County Sheriff filed a motion to transfer Richard Allen from their custody to the Indiana Department of Correction for, quote, safekeeping. A judge approved the order, the same judge who is now recusing himself, as we told you at the top of this newscast, saying the court finds Allen is in imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death and represents a substantial threat to the safety of others. The order goes on to state, quote, the public's bloodlust for information before it exists is extremely dangerous. All public administering this action do not feel safe and are not protected, end quote. It is unclear when the transfer will take place or where Allen will be relocated.
Okay, so that has to do with his transfer. That's not the exact article I was looking for. Let's escape out
This
of that.
morning I got up and there was a on Ashley Banfield last night. I sent you the link in the DM just now on Discord. But so this morning I'm watching it and it's News Nation, and what Russ McQuaid was on there as a guest, and he tells her that early in the investigation. Now we heard yesterday during a tweet that they were asked to remove some information off their website early on about DNA. So he's acting like he's a little upset that this happened, but people feel some kind of way about him right now anyway. But anyway, he said that early in the investigation, he was told there was DNA and that allegedly this supposed hair, possible hair, came from a state trooper who was out there investigating the scene. And we're like, what? But this morning we were all trying to figure out, did he say the trooper told him that, but it says they said it was from the state trooper.
All right.
So if they're ruling out DNAs and spending 20 grand on genealogy and you don't have no DNA, what the hell?
Right. So let's take a look at that. But first, let's finish going down this bunny trail. And I go down a lot of bunny trails.
Oh,
so I gotta
do
wrap it up. I gotta wrap it up before I come back.
Yeah.
Let's here we go.
Custody. On Monday, during the announcement of Allen's arrest, Carter said that state police still needed tips because the investigation remains open.
The investigation still remains open after Richard Allen is
tips.
arrested.
Also, over the course of the Delphi investigation, there were two primary sketches of a man police were looking for. They don't look alike. The sketch of the man with the hat came out during the start of the investigation in 2017, and 2 years later, a sketch of a man with curly hair was released. So I had this question.
2 years into the investigation, after we got the initial sketch, we were told to not rely on that sketch anymore, that this was a new sketch that came out that looked completely different than the original. But when we see the mugshot...
Okay, he just said we are not to rely on the previous sketch. How is that not huge? Because that's the previous sketch is the one that looks the most like Rick Allen, right?
I know. And that's not the first time that's been questions been asked, and Doug Carter has agreed. I've watched so many press conferences of that guy, and that's why I was like floored that they want to keep those sketches out, because they're the ones who made such a big deal about them.
He looks mostly like that initial sketch. So why the change 2 years into someone that didn't look anything like the person that we were presented with on Monday?
I'll answer the question in two parts. One, isn't that amazing?
Wait, what?
Yes, it's amazing, Doug. Every time he's
You were just challenged on how your sketches look nothing alike, and you said that the first sketch should be disregarded and we should pay attention to the second sketch. And your response is, "Isn't that amazing?"
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't throw up his magic hands when he said it.
Oh my God, he'll do that in the second interview, and I don't know if we're going to get to that, but that I can't.
Yeah, Doug is word salad. He needs some dressing.
In Indiana, it's usually ranch. Ranch is the popular word.
He looks a lot like one.
He don't deserve ranch.
And a little bit like the other, depending upon the eye of the beholder, right? And I've said all along, the sketches are not
depending on the eye of the beholder.
There are reasons that we structurally, and not structurally, but logistically changed.
Not structurally, but logistically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not structurally, but logistically. That means you had a plan. You had a plan and an agenda, and your switching from one sketch to the next was part of your plan to arrest a suspect, maybe?
They need to come out and say what they damn well meant. It's become, to me, in my opinion, I feel like, and I've felt this way for over a year, that they believe both of those sketches are different people and were involved, but they don't want to come out and say it. They don't want to tip that other guy off.
Well,
that's all I can figure.
the citizen that was the source of the second young bridge guy sketch said that sketch was a 10 out of 10 accuracy,
Yes.
which means that it could not be anywhere near old bridge guy, the first sketch.
And the witnesses have stated that he did not have blue eyes. She couldn't tell you if they were hazel or brown, but they were definitely not blue. And I've got a clip of that pieces of the press conference as well, one of the multiple press conferences. But they were adamant that the witness said the eyes were not blue.
Strategy throughout the middle of this.
Yeah.
And in multiple phases.
And Doug's aren't blue either.
We're not even recognized.
They're kind of like
Nor do they
hazel
have
gray.
to be. But those detectives are going to base what they're going to do based upon what they know. What they know comes from.
I would like to see. I'm going to pause right here. I would like to see.
Oops, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted.
You're having street racing going down there.
No, that was like 3 motorcycles just cruised by, and I'm like, dude, it's cold in Florida. Y'all get off them bikes.
No, they're trying to warm it up for you. They're going down at like 3,000 RPMs.
I've been inside all day. I just came out for a few minutes and I forgot I was not muted. Sorry, guys.
You've made me forget where I was going with this.
I'm so sorry.
Around the world, literally around the world. So I think that was the absolute.
Oh, I know where I was going. Body language. Like, he's not doing it here. He does it more in the next 2 interviews after this, which we're probably not going to get through both of them, but he does like mouth grooming, and he looks down to the left, and he looks up to the right, and he looks down to the right. And like, I'm not a body language expert, but I know those things are indicators of potential deception or just natural reactions to the question you're asked. And there are times where I guarantee he gives indicators of potential deception. Absolutely. 100%. Now people like, what's my favorite body language? The behavior panel. Those guys are super experts, and they will tell you that there are clusters of deceptions that you need to see before you have a higher confidence that you're being deceived. But I have at least a mid-level idea that I'm being deceived on some of these answers that he's giving here.
Right decision at the time to do what they did. I've always said that
cocking your head to the right and then looking down to the left. That's not a natural reaction.
And when we're all done with this, we're going to be able to build.
Okay. So let's go back and think about that last article that I shared with you where Tobe Lesenby said, stop sharing sketches side by side with people who you think are guilty because you're ruining innocent people's lives. Just think about that. Think about that. You don't know anything about Richard Allen. You don't know anything about any other suspects. You just know that the sheriff in the county says, stop sharing these because you're ruining innocent people's lives.
All the 2 of them together.
That was really? What do we have here? What do we have here, guys? We have 2 sketches that look nothing alike that you have literally graphically merged and shared side by side with your suspect's photo that you have just arrested and placed the blame for these murders on.
And we're going to.
Oh, good grief.
You can see the full interview with State Police Superintendent Doug Carter right now in this story on WRTV.com. To see all of our updates on the Delphi investigation, scan the QR code on your screen or go to WRTV.com/Delphi. Prosecutors say they are moving to...
Rebecca, I haven't watched that prof guy in a while. I think I've watched maybe 2 things that he's done. I'm not really familiar with him too much, but I know who you're talking about there.
All right, fill me in on what we're talking about.
I was reading Rebecca's comment. Says you need to go over and watch the prof after this. He's put this puzzle together.
Oh, nice.
Any better than Gray Hughes has? I'm throwing shade at Gray Hughes right now. Sorry.
All right. let's watch the second interview in this series. There's 3 interviews. We may not get
Okay.
to the third, which is fine, but I like to look at his body language, his facial expressions, his countenance. It's very interesting to me. It's very, very interesting to me.
After all the interviews I've watched and press conferences, Doug Carter being the head of the ISP, Doug Carter has also took many courses, or at least one really good course in public speaking. He likes to control the room. He likes to lead the conversation, and he plays word salad very, very well, which is what you need your spokesperson to do. That is their job. So there's training that goes behind that public speaking. All state agencies have that public relations person that comes out and speaks for them. That is literally their job. So they all have training in that area. Doug Carter's got that same training, in my opinion.
Right. And he not only has training, but he has a physical presence. Like if you're watching him on TV, you can't quite grasp the physical presence, but he's probably like 6'2", 6'3", maybe even 6'4". And I really noticed it when I was up there on August 23rd, and he dropped in for that hearing that was supposed to have a public hearing after the private hearing, and then the judge got pissed at all of us and kicked us all out. He was going around hugging like the victims' families and stuff like that, which is cool. That's great. But it seemed like some of that wasn't like 100% welcome, but he's definitely like intimidating. He wears around that flat rimmed Indiana State Trooper hat, and being 6'3" or 6'4". So I also watched the sentencing hearing for former Clark County Sheriff Jimmy Noel. And he actually went down there in person. Doug Carter, Superintendent Doug Carter of the entire state police, went down there in person to testify against or testify in the sentencing recommendation for Jamie Noel, that Jamie Noel had violated a lot of public trust, which he has, and blah, blah, blah. And we did a thorough investigation. And based on our thorough investigation, blah, blah, blah. He talked a lot about what he and the ISP did to investigate that. So it was a lot of me moment, in my opinion. Like, you didn't need to go down there to testify against Jamie Noel to influence his sentence. His sentence would have been the same with or without you, but it was going to be on TV. It was on TV. Well, Indiana live stream court TV. And he was there.
Yeah, he has to put in his appearances like he cares and things like that.
Yeah. Yep. And he did. He did in that case. But afterwards, he talked to the defense attorneys, he talked to the prosecutors, he talked to a few other people, and he is literally, I won't say towering over people, but he is taller than other people, like 2 to 5 to 7 inches. And with that flat brimmed hat on, it's intimidating. And that's.
Do we know where, which area he lives in? Like, I don't want to dox the guy and but like town, like a county. Where's he from?
Well, he testified in that Jamie Noel hearing that his first job was as the Hamilton County Sheriff. So that's north of Indianapolis. That's Carmel. That's like where Robert Ursay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, lives. Like, that's a very affluent, wealthy area. Hamilton County. I'm pretty sure that's what he said, was Hamilton County. He got his first job as Hamilton County Sheriff. He got elected as Hamilton County Sheriff, and he actually used that testimony against Jamie Noel, saying, as the Hamilton County Sheriff, I never would have done what you did. So what you did is exceptionally horrendous, which it was horrendous. And I don't begrudge him that testimony. But I mean, good grief, why are you going down to testify at this Superior Court hearing about another former sheriff's guilty plea sentencing hearing, telling people where you got your start in Hamilton County, Indiana? That makes no sense.
No.
And unless you like to talk about yourself some. And look at this picture that I have pulled up right here. I mean, that's a person that is very self-aware. He is very
Oh, very much so. That's why I've seen so many of the, all the press conferences he's done over time, and he's just the guy's got an energy that I don't think. Okay, I think he irritates a lot of people, but I feel and sense a certain type of energy that doesn't sit well with me. And that's about all I'm willing to say about it right now.
Yeah, I probably went further than I wanted to speak
Oh,
on
I
it.
can say a lot, but I mean, my real thoughts about what he could be.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's hit play. Look how wide his eyes are right there. Like he's opening his eyes super wide and twitching his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh shit! I have him muted.
Keeps coming to my mind when I think about that. But Mark, I appreciate the question. I didn't know what to expect when this finally came to, at least, I'm not going to say a close because we're
Skip.
But now we've got to be very, very careful with what.
Let's do a little Bob. Blip, blip, blip.
But here's
Blip.
wow. I didn't expect that question. I guess. I think the answer.
Wait, let's go back to that. Let's go back to see what question he didn't expect.
Yeah, he's not real loud. I got my headphones on, but I still can't hear him that well.
I'll turn it up. I can do that.
But who knows?
All right.
As they move forward, so
Is that better?
They're as focused now as they've ever been before.
Yeah.
You know, you had mentioned that you weren't going to retire until this case was solved. Where we are now, where does that statement stand with you? Is that still how you feel?
Wow. I didn't expect that question, I guess. I think the answer now is we're on the right track. And
we're on the right track to get you retired, Superintendent Carter. We're on the right track to get you retired. Flip.
From all over the place. That we had to. You
notice that the changes in the investigators are so close with this case.
It has become them. I think that's the word that would come to my mind.
Oops.
The words that would come to my mind. It's become personal to them, but in a very, very unselfish way. People ask, well, Superintendent, why have you given so many resources that the ISP has to this one case, but not
okay.
And my response to that is, that wasn't my choice.
Who addresses him as Superintendent? Why did you do this? Superintendent, why did you do that? It's almost like the Deion Sanders address yourself in the third person. Because I guarantee you, nobody comes to him and says, Superintendent, why did you do this? Why did you do that? That's very egotistical, no?
Most definitely.
Because we have such
That's one of his traits.
That were feeding us information from all over the place. They've said, send me.
This is going to be one of those cases that networks and streaming services and podcasters will continue to examine and look at. And this could be one that can provide lessons for investigators around not only the nation, but the world in this case. What is one thing that you think?
Lip licking. Did you see that? That's a sign of nervousness. So he's talking about podcasters and investigators looking at this case, and he licks his lips.
That investigators studying criminal law and forensic science,
twitching his
really
mouth.
Away from
that's
what we've
man
seen here in Indiana.
Yeah,
it's something else from a body language
question. You're probably going to be
standpoint.
surprised at my response. And I think that as I look back, how do we manage human behavior? How do we manage complex issues?
Why do you need to manage human behavior? You're an Indiana State Police superintendent. It's not your job to manage human behavior.
Well, No, it's not. But he thinks it's his job to manage everybody's human behavior. And no, sir, you're not my boss.
So he was just asked a question about internet, whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but people like us and investigators from outside of his jurisdiction, he says, manage human behavior. So is it his desire to manage people that he doesn't have the authority to control?
Yes, he wants to. That's what I'm saying. He wants to control the room, control the narrative, and control the conversation. He
Well, but
does it over and over.
We're outside of his room, though. He can't control us. But
Exactly.
Does he
But he
still
wants to.
desire to? Okay.
Yes, he
Okay.
does.
That makes sense with his body language and with his words. Like both
Yes.
of them put together is astounding.
Associated with schedules and people and responsibilities and documentation, and that list can go on and on and on. We didn't have the ability to take this much information as an agency. We relied heavily on the FBI, and they were just simply magnificent early on by bringing the Orion system in and allowing us and partnering with us and showing us how to collect and keep so much information.
Okay, hold right there.
And,
pause.
It made us better. It really did. It made us better. So
did I pause
there
it?
are a lot
No.
of lessons. I
think I paused the wrong one. Hold on.
Because as all of us
Dang
in our
it.
lifetime, we look back.
There we go. I found it.
He just said they came in and showed them the Orion system and showed them how to use it. But yet they claim when Dan Doolin misspelled that tip, it was the FBI did it wrong in the Orion system. So which is it, Doug Carter? Did they not? What? Make it make sense, dude. I'm getting so aggravated. I got a whole list of questions that directly pertain to every statement he's made. Plus, if in what they've made since the arrest and how they come up with the tip, they said it was misfiled into the Orion system. And then we learned that not only was it allegedly misfiled, but Doolin wrote the last name down as the damn street Alan lived on. It switched them. So when you rediscovered your missing tip, y'all quickly figured out, oh, wait, his last name is Allen. That's not the name of his street. Let's switch these two names. Oh, now we got the guy's name. That's bullshit. That's not how that went down. They know it. So stop lying at this point. I mean, come on. You're contradicting yourself with your own statements.
Which is not the first time he's done that.
No. It's been going on the entire case.
Dang it, I missed it there. But one thing I'm sure of, we didn't do anything we knew was wrong.
Whoa.
Dude, we're going to need a drink by the end of this stream, and we don't neither one be big drinkers. Holy shit.
We didn't do anything we knew was wrong. Oh my God.
Me neither.
Can you find all the faults with that? We didn't do anything. He doesn't say we didn't do anything wrong. We did everything right. He says we didn't do anything we knew was wrong.
So
Holy shit!
y'all aren't well trained.
Okay. Pardon my language, but that's a total mind fuck right there.
Yep.
That is the superintendent of the Indiana State Police giving us a total mind fuck, and that was within 2 seconds of me hitting the play button. Fuck.
That's his job, man.
We didn't do anything we knew was wrong. God, oh my. Okay. Did you think it was wrong? Did you think it might be wrong? Did you think there might be an error?
Do the criminals get to say that? Well, I didn't know it was wrong. My bad.
No. I didn't know it was wrong. They don't.
Yeah.
It's not I didn't know it was wrong. Is I didn't think it was wrong.
Right.
And Sarah Boone it goes down that path with her case. She's like, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to kill him.
Yeah.
But
I did.
I'm sorry, but I got to play that again. I got to back.
But we all wish we had some do-overs for sure. Better. It really did. It made us better. So there are a lot of lessons.
It didn't make you
appreciate
better.
that question.
It didn't make you better.
Because as all of us in our lifetime, we look back and think, dang it, I missed it there. But one thing I'm sure of, we didn't do anything we knew was wrong.
I want to put that like on a t-shirt, like on a poster. we didn't do anything we knew was wrong. All right.
But we all
Yeah.
wish we had some do-overs for
All
sure.
right.
All right. Anything I'm missing? David, you? I don't think so. Anything you want to add?
I think it's important that we send a message that over a long period of time, evil will not prevail. And I hope that the community.
Are you part of that? Are you part of that evil will not prevail? Just asking. Just asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Starting to heal. It's going to take some time. But I used the analogy earlier today. April of 1999 changed our world at Columbine High School. And the consequence of that is we have a whole generation of young people that grew up in an active shooter world in their schools.
What does Abby and Libby's death and Richard Allen have to do with active shooters? Not a single fucking thing.
Nothing.
It breaks my heart that.
Oh, so he's got a heart. That's
He
what.
does not
That's what
have
it has
one.
to.
He's
That's
got
what.
a black
No,
heart.
all right. I'm sorry, but I gotta stop. I gotta stop with that. I can do maybe the third. Let's see what he does in the third interview.
Okay.
Maybe. If I can find it. Yeah. If the internet will cooperate.
Right. Well, hey, you got my swamp signal? Is it reaching you?
I do. It is.
Hey,
It's
mine's been
because-
doing pretty good last couple of days. I'm impressed.
We're supposed to have a frost up here tonight. It must have frozen that third
A
interview.
frost. Holy shit. I've been outside just a few minutes. I'm ready to go back inside because I'm in Florida and I am cold as shit. I'm not even lying. I've been cold all damn day. I'm not cool. I'm gonna be miserable. I'm gonna try to be nice all winter, y'all. I'll just pretend it's not winter in my head.
Nope. We don't get that third interview on this tonight, according to Indiana's frost signal. You got swamp signal. We got frost signal.
That's crazy.
All right. Let's look at this. Let's do share screen. Boom. Boom. So they've released 2 investigation posters. The date of this is March 16th, 2022. So this is before Richard Allen was arrested, and it's 3 years after they released the second sketch, Young Bridge Guy. The FBI has confirmed it's removing personal identifiers about the man who is wanted in the Delphi deaths investigation. They're doing this at the request of the Indiana State Police. Oh, wow. So this is months before, and just a few months before, not that many months before, they arrest Richard Allen. Apparently, the Indiana State Police contacted the FBI to remove personal identifiers about the man who is wanted in the Delphi deaths investigation. It means the current height, weight, and age of the man identified in the investigation are being removed from the current posters. So they have old bridge guy, young bridge guy.
So why would they do that without updating the information if they think it's wrong? You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Unless they have a specific suspect who doesn't match those personal identifiers. Here is the FBI's Department of Justice flyer. Shows Abby and Libby, old bridge guy, young bridge guy. And evidence has led investigators to believe the aforementioned person is suspected of being involved in the murders. Anyone with information should contact. It's been more than 5 years since they were killed. The deaths remain unsolved. Last month, ISP Superintendent Doug Carter said he believes detectives will identify the person who killed the girls while he's still superintendent for the first time in an interview with WRTV. Maybe we need to look at that. Let's look at that. just because we can. It looks like we're going down a
Go
Doug
for it.
Carter rabbit hole right
Oh,
here.
goodness. I'll have nightmares tonight on this damn full moon. My energy can match his. Bring it, buddy.
All right. Stop screen. Present. Share screen. Boom. Boom. What you got, Doug? What you got? This is before the other. This is prior to the interviews we just watched. Oh
works hard
gosh.
for you with top quality primers, durable
I
interior
should have
and exterior
preloaded
paint,
this. Sorry,
and
guys.
specialty products to help grow your business. Dutch Boy Professional
Apparently,
Series
Dutch Boy
paints,
can help me
available
grow
at
my
Menards.
business.
And new this morning, new insights into the Delphi investigation. The state's top law enforcer believes the case could be solved within 3 years or much sooner. Monday will mark 5 years since the bodies of Abby Williams and
Within
Libby
3
German were
years or
found near
much
the
sooner.
Old Monon High Bridge on Valentine's Day 2017. Now, since that moment, police have received thousands of tips involving the case. Despite a cell phone video and sketch, this case remains unsolved. State Police Superintendent Carter, he sat down with me yesterday afternoon and for the first time expressed a possible timeline of when he believes this case could likely come to an end.
I believe that while I'm the superintendent of the state police, we'll identify this individual.
That's within 2 years, sir.
3.
3 years. 3 years.
2 years and 11 months.
They didn't want to push you out.
Yeah.
So you think within 3 years something will develop?
It could be today.
It could be today.
It could be tomorrow. But I can say that we're continuing to move in a very positive direction.
Wait, this was when? This was in 2022, and he said he was going to be gone. This was February 10th, 2022. And he said he was going to be gone.
They
I was asked
literally
earlier,
had
what would you
nothing.
say to Abby and Libby if you saw them today? And I would just simply say, I'm sorry, but I hope you're proud of us for what we tried to do. And I believe that one day I'll be able to do that.
Now, the last major development in this ongoing case came back this past December, as you may recall. State police asked people who use Snapchat and Instagram to provide information about a young man using a fake account on social media to lure young girls. That appeal was made in a state police video. Now, the man at the center of the fake account, he's in custody, but he has not been named as a suspect or a person of interest directly in the Delphi case. I was hoping to get more details on that, but this is all the superintendent would say.
It generated a tremendous amount of interest. And the leads that we've
Wait. Anthony Schatz, Keegan Klein, he wouldn't come out and say, no, Keegan Klein is not a suspect or is a suspect. All he talked about was the interest that it generated in the case.
Yeah.
Is that your primary interest, Doug Carter, is how much interest is generated in the case? Like for real?
received have been very helpful. But that's as far as I can go with that particular issue.
The superintendent tells me that this is not a cold case because he tells me no one has given up on the investigation. All new in our next half hour, why and when state police may need to assign 80 to 100 people to this case. Plus, Good Morning America.
It doesn't matter how many people you assign to the case when you have a guy like that in charge of it. He's something else, and I feel almost like my animosity towards him is unwarranted and out of bounds, but I also feel like it is warranted, and it
Absolutely.
just, like, his treatment of this case did not help it arrive at the conclusion of justice for Abby and Libby. And that's what he said from the beginning. That's what his goal was. I just want to see justice for Abby and Libby, and I won't rest till justice for Abby and Libby is found. Like he said that from the beginning, and I honestly, in my heart, believed him from the beginning, and I don't believe that now. I don't believe that that's what his, maybe in the beginning his intent was that, but by the
Well,
time they got to the end of it, no.
yeah. Well, we're supposed to want to believe in law enforcement. We want to believe in them and to believe they're doing all they can to make the arrest and the right arrest. But everything in this case has been done very oddly from the beginning, you know. And then you get Doug Carter up here with all his wishy-washy statements throughout the 5 years and controlling the narrative and the room with his words. And it's ridiculous. Like, we've heard enough from this guy already. I have, you know what I mean? It's to the point where you don't believe anything he tells you. And for them to continue to want us to believe him, and then for him to come out and give his excuses and reasonings behind this and that, when you do have a question, they're not very good reasons for our questions. No, they're not good answers. You know what I mean? They're just like, oh, you guys, calm down. You don't know anything. We know everything. You're going to wait and see it. You wait and see. Well, we're
Right.
waiting. And guess what? We can't see because y'all won't let us.
These two sketches are going to merge into the same suspect. You're going to see.
Well, we saw that they didn't.
No, the only way they did is by manipulating the mass media to create a graphic that literally graphically merged the two photos, like better than his little cross hands did.
Mm-hmm.
And then compare them side by side. So this is the total point of this that originated this discussion tonight. He compared them side by side with the mugshot of Richard Allen and said, don't those look the same? Which is what law enforcement begged internet sleuthers and Nancy Grace not to do. Don't put sketches side by side with photographs. You're going to ruin innocent people's lives. So whose innocent life was ruined by you doing that, Superintendent Doug Carter?
I guess he's real mad at me and my little TikTok videos of Bridge Guy and all the different suspects they looked at that was on my side-by-side comparisons. Oh, well.
All right, this is your video, Sleuthy, Salty, so you got to talk about this.
Okay.
16 people willing or at least able to put their lives on hold for a solid month and move 100 miles away, where their days will be spent in a courtroom and their nights will be spent stuck in a mid-priced hotel. Any takers? Because amazingly, it took less than 2 days to find those people. 12 jurors and 4 alternates in the long-awaited murder trial of that guy, Richard Allen, in Indiana, and the opening statements are set for this Friday. Richard Allen is accused of killing 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German near an abandoned railway bridge in Delphi, Indiana, more than 7.5 years ago. But 2 bombshells were dropped by the defense before the opening statements even get underway. One of Allen's attorneys revealed that hair was found clutched in the hand of Abby Williams when they found her body. We'd never heard that before. And bombshell number 2, the hair did not belong to Richard Allen. How's that for reasonable doubt? On the other side, of course, are jailhouse phone calls to his wife where Allen allegedly admits over and over to killing the girls and, quote, incriminating statements to both inmates and guards, end quote. All of that during his time in lockup. But the defense says that Allen said all of those things under duress and in a state of psychosis. And remember those composite sketches that the police put out during the 5 long years they were looking for a suspect? The sketches bear little resemblance to Richard Allen, and the state now wants those barred from the trial. Hearing for that is set for on Thursday, but I want to bring in Russ McQuaid, a reporter with News Nation affiliate Fox 59 in Indianapolis. Great to have you, Russ. Thanks for being on. So let's talk about that hair, because it just feels like that it would have just taken the oxygen out of the courtroom. Did it? And what does it mean?
Well, for so many of us that have covered this case, not only for 7.5 years, but the 2 years going back to this month in 2022 when Richard Allen was put under arrest. And right away, we had difficulty getting answers about the search warrant, about the probable cause, even his whereabouts as he was moved from jail to jail in secret without lawyer representation. This is why when we attended the jury selection the last 2 days, it's very important not only to see what the jurors say when they're questioned, can you be fair and impartial, but you also have to listen to what the attorneys say, because through their questions, you start to get a lead on where they're going with their strategy and their case. And it was on the second day, today, not the first day, when Andrew Baldwin, one of the defense attorneys, as he is trotting out several of the aspects of the state's case, which he says won't hold water, and he said, yes, there was hair discovered in Abby's hands, and that hair did not belong to Richard Allen. You look at the various photographs of Richard Allen. Of course, the most recent photographs or most early photographs we have were 2022, not 2017.
Yeah.
If you look at Richard Allen, he's a bald-headed man with close-cropped hair. So, and there's always been
Well, with a
speculation.
beard, though, you know.
Well, and he did.
I want to ask you this, though.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because there's some other stuff that really sort of jumps out. In 2022, Libby's grandma said in an interview that the police told her there was DNA in the case. Just days after the actual murder itself in 2017, the sheriff told your station that they had DNA evidence, and then law enforcement later asked to have that information pulled from the website. Does that start to square with this bombshell today?
I was told that was DNA of a state trooper. Assuming it was a state trooper that was down there investigating the crime scene. I was told that personally within the first few days of the investigation.
Wait, what?
Yeah, but how would you know whose DNA it is that fast?
Yeah.
In a couple of days. We just now have rapid DNA tests available at the FDLE lab in Florida. This is stuff they're trying to roll out to give law enforcement, you know how they can test drugs on scene. They're coming up with some DNA preliminary test things that you can kind of do the same way, but it's not like used yet. So how did they know early enough on? They lied to him.
Let's go back and listen to that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact in Indiana that there are private labs that can get you DNA results within a week to 2 weeks, but the actual state police DNA lab is months before they have results. So that's all right. We're going backwards a little bit here so we can hear that again.
Pulled from the website. Does that start to square with this bombshell today?
I was told that was DNA of a state trooper. Assuming it was a state trooper that was down there.
All right, we're going back a little further.
Well, and he did.
I want to ask you this, though. Let me ask you this, because there's some other stuff that really sort of jumps out. In 2022, Libby's grandma said in an interview that the police told her there was DNA in the case. Just days after the actual murder itself in 2017, the sheriff told your station that they had DNA evidence, and then law enforcement.
Days after the murder,
mm-hmm.
they told her. Days after the murder. Days. Like, I don't even know a private DNA lab that will get you DNA results in days.
They lied to him about whose DNA that was.
Pulled from the website. Does that start to square with this bombshell today?
I was told that was DNA of a state trooper.
Within days of the murder, he was told that was DNA of a state trooper.
Time to be journalists. Why haven't you said that before?
Assuming it was a state trooper that was down there investigating the crime scene. I was told that personally within the first few days of the investigation. Then that information sort of went away. It's like a lot of things in this case where they pop up and then suddenly they don't seem to hold water, as you had previously mentioned. Now we have a hearing on Thursday morning where the prosecution wants to quash the sketches which came from a state police artist taking the description of witnesses on the bridge of people they allegedly saw there that day. That as recently as this last July, the lead state police trooper verified and vouched for those sketches in open court. And now 2 months later, the state wants to pull those from evidence because they say they don't look like Richard Allen. They were only investigative tools.
So that's actually a valid point that we have to evaluate legally. So we have pretrial motions, and the threshold for allowing evidence in pretrial motions is different than the threshold for evidence allowed in trials, in criminal trials. So just saying, okay, these guys use them in the pretrial hearings does not necessarily mean just because they want them excluded from the trials is a legally jeopardizing request. But it's still fishy as hell. Still fishy as hell. We wanted to use these, and we just watched. Okay, so we just watched a video that is an official interview with the superintendent of the Indiana State Police with an official major media outlet where they literally graphically merged old bridge guy sketch and young bridge guy sketch and said, this is the same suspect. And then they posed it next to a photo of Richard Allen. They posed it next to a booking photo of Richard Allen. So how is that not? I can't even. So I understand that evidence that we all see that may prejudice us may not prejudice the jury. And that's part of the attorney's voir dire job, is to filter out those jurors that have seen what we just watched and can't be objective. But seriously, like only 2 hours north of the site, when the Indiana State Police released these sketches and these interviews and these press releases to the entire state of Indiana and to the world, how does that not prejudice jurors like at all? No,
Yeah.
I didn't see it. It didn't affect me at all.
That we were using along the way. And if the defense is successful in showing these to the jurors, it will just confuse them because they don't look like Richard Allen.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com.
It will just confuse them because it doesn't look like Richard Allen. Neither does your video. I mean, your 43-second video, unless you got a better picture of that man's face in that video, that just shows a random guy walking. If you don't see the face clearly, it can't identify your suspect either. It can lend to the a tool that make this could be the guy, but you have no eyewitness anything, no clear image that we can tell. All they seem to have is the bullet, the unspent round, and the tip, and not even the tip, his own statement, yeah, I was there. And this morning when I heard this doctor profiling him, he was like, who goes to the bridge to watch the fish? A lot of people probably did, because it was a clear creek and you could literally look down and see the fish, even from up there, up high. So I'm not discrediting that bridge guy could be the guy who told them to go down that hill and kill those poor little girls. But at the same time, just out for a stroll, watching the fish is also something very normal that most people were out there doing already. I get not everybody on the trails went down that bridge, because it's not for everybody, because it's old and rickety and so high up. But it's just, if two teenage girls are willing to go out there and cross it, why wouldn't a grown man be, willing to go out there? And Betsy Blair was out there on the bridge. She saw young bridge guy right there by platform 1. She didn't go all the way across the bridge, but she went out for a few, the first few feet to get to the platform. So people going onto the bridge wasn't even abnormal. People did it. So I have no idea if Richard Allen's the guy or not, but I'm not convinced he was the only one out there. And if he wasn't the only one, where are his ties to these other people?
Yeah. And along with my what's good for the goose theme on this one is something that I have not been able to find the transcripts for, and we may not have the transcripts for. All I have is my notes from August 1st. And if we want all of the transcripts, and in my opinion, this is total bullshit. Total bullshit. Ooh, total bullshit. I did a Kmart thing there. Total bullshit. We have to pay thousands of dollars to transcribe anything that we don't have transcripts for at this point.
Yeah.
Because they have to assign a court reporter to transcribe it, and it takes hours and hours and hours. But on August 1st, Nick McClelland made the argument that it wasn't the defense to provide a third-party defense. The defense team needed to provide substantial evidence that a third-party suspect was at the scene of the crime. And he actually mentioned DNA evidence. Like, in his opinion, for the defense to be able to provide that third-party defense, they should provide DNA evidence of a third-party suspect being at the scene of the crime. When the state can't even provide DNA evidence that Richard Allen was at the scene of the crime.
Right.
The state can't provide evidence that Richard Allen was on the bridge without Richard Allen's own testimony. Like, all of their eyewitnesses are about some guy that kind of looks like this guy, and some guy that's kind of dressed like this, and some guy that kind of parked a car that kind of looks like this in kind of this area. Like, none of it is anywhere near beyond a reasonable doubt, let alone above, substantial evidence, and way below beyond a reasonable doubt for being at the actual scene of the crime. So he's there, he's at the bridge, according to his own testimony, which he's obviously not going to testify to. And they're not going to bring the DNR officer, Duran, right?
Doolin.
They're not going to bring him. So,
well, then how are they going to, all they got is Rick Allen's statement saying I was there. And like, there were a lot of people there. They talked to a bunch of people that were there. All the witnesses that described the sketches and the man walking on the 300 North, there were people out there. Rick Allen said he was out there. I'm aggravated. I don't know if Rick Allen did it or not, but they did a shitty investigation, and they cannot deny it. I'm sorry. I get mad for the community and for the girls' families, because you literally put the entire town through hell for 5 straight years, to the point they were turning on each other. They were looking at each other. I live in tiny town America. 2 little girls come up dead in my woods. I'm going to look at every man that walks past me wearing a blue Carhartt jacket. Especially if you show me a trail cam or a video of what this person may or may not look like. I'm eyeballing every man in this town, trying to figure out which one of you is out there, because I know random strangers aren't going to pull off the interstate and come into those woods. We don't even live near the interstate out here. So when you put a small town, or any town, but it's harder in a small town because people do know each other. And your limited pool of suspects, unless it was a rando that jumped off the Hoosier Highway and said, I'm going to take my chances and maybe I'll get a thrill kill today and I'll be back on the road and nobody will ever know I was here. Does that happen? Yes, it happens. Or they are actively watching 25 to 50 serial killers in the United States right now. They believe are long-haul truckers moving state to state, picking a victim up in one county, state, and before you know it, they got them in another state committing the crime, then on to another state to dump that body, and they're tracking them. So yes, random kills can occur, but in rural small town America, if you don't know where those locations are, you do not know to go there. So if it happens in my town, and I'm surrounded by one of the largest state forests in Florida, I'm eyeballing every single one of these hunters who dress like that, who carry weapons, and that's everybody in the entire town.
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about random kills off of a highway, let's talk about Elvis Fields,
right?
And Indiana Packers.
Let's do.
So he had ties to Rushville. He lived down in Rushville, and he knew Patrick Westfall, and he wanted to become a part of whatever club or gang or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And so he would ride on semis. Yes, Chapman. Good DB.
Thank you.
Elvis Fields would ride up on semi trucks that were hauling hogs up to Delphi and Indiana Packers. And Indiana Packers is like one of the main processing plants.
Oh, Lord. We have
in
a
the
thing out
Midwest.
here in the rural area. If you know where the hog pens are, you're halfway there.
Well, let me tell you about Indiana Packers. So I did a project around Indiana Packers back when they first got started, and we had to be on the ground around Indiana Packers. And if you were standing around the plant and the winds were right, it smelled like Easter. It smelled like Easter morning. Like it smelled like a ham roasting in the oven.
Yeah.
But if you were standing on the other side of the winds and on the other side of the plant, it smelled like death incarnate. It was.
Oh yeah, we have a stinky. We call it stinky plant. It's not it's not near me. It's near my sister's house, but it's been there since we were like little kids. It's a paper mill plant, and on a bad day and the wind's blowing the wrong way, you definitely smell that plant. You know, it's like I could not live up here near you. Well, when I was a little kid, there was nobody living out there where that plant is, but now there are. But I would not buy a home out there and live in it when I got a random smell that might float through my yard. My nose be all offended and shit.
Yeah, not just my nose, my stomach, my salivary glands. Like, oh God.
I like calming. I need calming smells and stuff around me because I'm already a high-strung individual. I'm like, no, I need to calm. Where's my sage? I need to light something on fire.
Yeah. But Elvis Fields would supposedly ride up with truck drivers who were delivering hogs to the Delphi plant, and one of those truck drivers would have a girlfriend in the Lafayette area. But they would also have ties, supposedly, to Asatru or Odinism or Vinlanders or whatever the gangs are that are associated in the Delphi area.
Well, they're all connected. We know that. We know that Holder and Westfall and Fields and Messer, the whole lot of them, they all knew each other. They knew each other. That's how they connected them all. When they began, allegedly, when they got a tip, however they got turned on to Holder within those first few days in Logan, and they begin to look at Brad, then you got to look at the angle of the Odinism because of what he allegedly had put on his Facebook, and they're going to see the people he's involved with. So that's a no-brainer to me. They're going to be on your list of people to look into. But how did you clear them so quickly? And so when you got the professor and the Unified Command and the FBI are all saying this could be this, but yet you legitimately have these kind of people living in your community, and you see it with law enforcement had to see it or they wouldn't have investigated it. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, nothing to see here. They're good to go. They're clear. They practiced this and they could have been involved in this, but they didn't do that. Well, something made y'all look at them to begin with. What was it? I need to know that. I'm going to be like Ann Taylor now. How did you get to my guy? How did you get to Brad Holder? Was it just because Abby, y'all found out Abby dated? You're going to look at the boyfriends. Were there any boyfriends in their lives? Who were they communicating with? You always start there. It's like when a child goes missing or, a wife is dead, they're going to always look at the husband and vice versa. So you start close and you got to work your way out. So did y'all settle on Holder because of Logan's connection to Abby? And then you realize Holder has connections to this type of stuff that we think might be involved with what happened in those woods? That makes sense to me, but now make it make sense that you cleared them so easily and just blew off that whole situation.
Well, the bottom line is And this is what Nick McClelland said time after time after time with all of those witnesses, all of those third-party witnesses on August 1st. Because Baldwin and Rosie would create some type of cloud over them as being potential suspects, right? Because they were suspects. They were suspects. And there were primary suspects that were more prime suspects until their interviews were lost. And then all of a sudden they disappear as suspects. But Rosie and Baldwin, defense team, Auger at times would paint them as suspects. And then McClelland would get up and say, so did you ever tie them conclusively to the murders? And
Well,
every
No,
single
they-
one of them would have to say no.
Yeah.
They had no choice, because the question was, did you ever tie them conclusively to the crimes? But then
That's standard protocol, but can you do the same with Richard Allen? Can you conclusively
right,
tie him?
that McClelland doesn't care about that. McClelland doesn't care. So then the next question is, as the defense team, and the defense team should be asking this, and I don't think they did, if I remember right, did you ever clear them conclusively from being suspects in this? And I never heard that asked. And I would absolutely ask that as a defense attorney. So there's a huge difference between conclusive exclusion and conclusive inclusion.
Well, all we know is they excluded them because of their alibis. Holder was at work and Westfall was at home with his boys.
Right. So because of those alibis, then they cleared them, not conclusively, but they just said.
So you got Westfall claims they took his DNA. So if you did, then you must have ruled him out, because that DNA don't match what you found at your crime scene. I also know you took Paul Etter's DNA. I've got the video to prove it, where Delphi reached out and they wanted a sample from Etter. Why, if you don't have DNA? Because you damn well do have DNA and you know it. So you don't have, if it does not match Allen, it belongs to somebody else. Was it not Westfall? Was it not Brad? Was it Logan? Was it Tom, Dick, or Harry? Whose DNA is it? And if Richard Allen did it and he didn't act alone, is he too frightened to name that person in his 61 confessions? Only him? You know, I mean, I am almost positive they have DNA in that case. That's how and why they continue to say there's more than one person involved. They just don't know who the hell it is. But they're convinced Allen was involved as well. But there's one more person out there somewhere floating around. Who was it?
We may never know, because of how screwy, one, the investigation was, how screwy, two, the prosecution is, how screwy, three, the judge's rulings are, because she sides 99% of the time. She sides with the state, even if it doesn't make sense to us as lay persons. So,
even the lawyers can't make sense of it. They need to stop insulting our intelligence. And you absolutely got DNA in this case, and you absolutely know it doesn't belong to Richard Allen. So who does it belong to? Now, if I'm his attorney, I want you to prove to me that you took samples from these multiple suspects you investigated very early on, and I want to see the results. Did they not match? If they didn't match, that's fine. Let's move on. Because it's somebody's DNA. And if you spent 20 grand on genealogical testing, that's how that's not how they got back to Kohberger, but they used it in Kohberger. That's how they caught the Golden State Killer, reverse genealogy. So what did you spend that 20 grand on genealogy for? Did you do a reverse genealogy? Did you make a tree? Who did it lead you to? Because obviously the DNA you have is not in CODIS, or you'd have another suspect. So it's got to be in a private base somewhere, GEDmatch. Maybe the person's DNA never uploaded theirs, and maybe nobody in their family ever did. You know what I'm saying? You got to upload this DNA to get there. Mine's not in nobody's database. You're not getting it. I'm not going to do anything wrong, but you're not getting it. But so what was the 20 grand spent on? What were the results of those tests? Because Ann Taylor's about to make a big damn deal about all that over there in Idaho 4. Take a page, Rosie and Baldwin. Take note. Because you need to be asking those questions. If there is DNA, I need to know whose it is and whose it wasn't. So every suspect you have listed, I need to know for sure if you got a sample from that person or not. And what was the results of those tests. Because that matters. It's time to quit playing around. If you really truly want justice for those little girls, you would absolutely be making sure that you've done all of that. Not just, oh, okay, you were at work, good to go. That's good to know. You're clear going home. I don't even need your DNA now. Bullshit.
Right.
I'm going to want that DNA now.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense. This was a bad investigation. And because y'all did such a bad investigation, you want to backtrack. You don't want the world to know that you did a bad investigation, that you didn't do things right, that you didn't do it the way you should have. Why? I mean, come on. It's got to be one or the other. If you can prove to me Rick Allen did it, then you're going to prove it to me. Either you are or you aren't. But we won't know because we don't even get to watch the court proceedings. We don't get no audio. We rely on people's notes. No shade to the people and the note takers. Thank God they're there. But come on, man. It's ridiculous.
Hopefully you're going to have me there on Friday. Hopefully, fingers
I
crossed.
hope so. And if I was the family member, I would be demanding you put that in public. Why so shady? I got a lot of questions for you. Even especially if it was my child and you were investigating it and you took this long to make an arrest, and then you're going to tell me it was a misfiled tip. Sorry, so we're so sorry. No, ma'am. Now I'm pissed. Now I'm mad if I'm that family, and I can't help that. I've lost a child, so I know exactly how that feels, and I would damn well be asking those questions. And they probably have. The family wanted more of the video released before, and the sheriff said he made the decision to tell them, no, we're not going to do that. I saw it's in Barbara McDonald's interview with him where he clearly says, yes, the family did ask us if we could release more of that video in hopes that it would help trigger memories, or, hey, maybe this is my friend from down the street or the guy at the CV or whatever, release more of what you got so we can try to get this guy. And the cops made the decision not to because they didn't want the family to be upset by what's on the 43-second video. I think the families can handle that. They had to handle putting their child in the ground. You don't get no more real than that, Doug Carter, Carroll County. So I think they could have handled whatever was on that 43-second video.
Well, and I think maybe the searchers could have handled staying out on February 13th after 11:30 p.m.
Damn right they could. You're
when
grown-ass
Toby-
people. Put your
when
big boy
To-
pants on, man. It's cold. Get over it.
Yeah, there were people out there who were willing to, but Tobe Lesamy said, nope, we don't feel the girls are in any danger, so we're calling off the search.
Like he knew them well enough to make that call. That's like when you call up and say, my 16-year-old's missing. Oh, did they just run away? We'll look for him tomorrow. Or my wife didn't come home from work today and it's now 9 o'clock and I can't even reach her. Are you sure she didn't run off with another man? We'll look for it tomorrow. Bullshit. Change the way y'all do things. We got Sebastian Rogers missing for how long now? Elizabeth Smart was gone for 9 solid months. Change the way y'all do things because it obviously isn't working. And stop telling me you got to keep it this close to the chest for the investigation's integrity. That's bullshit. You're protecting your shoddy ass investigation at this point. I think I need a nap. Oops, sorry, y'all.
Maybe a little snack, maybe some M&Ms.
I don't
maybe
need no
trail
snack.
mix.
I'm such a high strung person. It takes. I was hungry earlier today and I ate. I'm good to go. I just think I probably need a nap, maybe a cigarette or something. Who knows? Fucking gummy, fucking no, a shot of whiskey. I don't even drink. This case is gonna make you want to drink.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions out there, and they do not want to answer a single solitary question.
They like keeping it in the dark in Indiana, apparently.
But why? Why so secretive? Is it because you're hiding what goes on in your town and you're all actually a part of it? Or is it just because you're hiding a bad investigation? You don't want to look like dumbasses? Which one is it? It's going to be one or the other. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. And I don't know, what do you think about this trial and Judge Cole and Nick McClelland and Rosie and Baldwin? Are we going to get justice?
No. Because if Rick Allen did it, he wasn't the only one out there. That means somebody's still walking around going, damn, I got away with something. So there will not be true justice. There'll be partial justice. But you got to prove this man you said did it. And then there's still somebody else out there, regardless.
So what do they have to put Rick Allen at the scene of the crime? They have a casing, a tool mark.
That casing don't prove he was there. He said he was there. That's what proves he was there. In the video of a guy walking down a bridge.
Right.
But
That proves he was at the bridge. That doesn't
Yeah.
prove he was at the scene of the crime.
Exactly. That bullet don't prove he was at the scene of the crime. Not yet. Not in my eyes.
That's
We got
what
some preliminary testing that says it could be from his gun. It could have come from a lot of different guns. You know how many bullets I'm going to find out in the woods if I walk out there and start looking? A lot. I'm telling you, I live in a rural area. There's gun shooting going off all the time. If I walked out to this back field and entered those woods way back there, I'm going to start finding bullets, especially if I get a metal detector and start getting in the ground. I was raised by deer hunters. I know what they carry on them. I know how they operate. I know all this stuff. You know, it's like, come on. We're not dumb. The public can handle a whole lot more than they think we can. And I'm just sick of the way they've handled this entire investigation. And I agree. It probably was just a really bad investigation. But your bad investigation led to somebody getting away with it. Because there's obviously another person out there. And that's not me just thinking that. That's them telling me there's other people, or at least multiple people, 2 to 6 more involved. Everything I'm saying has come from their own mouth, not stuff I made up with my friends on the internet in some secret chat room talking shit. No, this is stuff you guys have told us. Like the sketches you don't want in court now. You crammed those down our throats for 5 solid years. Look for this guy. Look for these 2 guys. Oh, wait, they're going to merge together and be the same guy. What the hell is going on here? I don't know. They need to stop it. It don't make any sense.
Nope,
it is
it
very
doesn't.
frustrating.
Yep.
You know, and then they want to get, even on Twitter, if you go, people are like, oh, well, he's the guy, there's confessions, and if it's not his DNA, then whose is it? Well, I don't know, smart ass, you tell me. But don't come into this case right now in the end and start popping off like you know something if you don't know nothing. You know, we are literally, this is not tunnels in Idaho fantasy land. It's not the same. I went down every one of them damn rabbit holes that was presented over there in Idaho. There's all these alternate theories of what could have happened to those poor kids in that house. None of them panned out. None of them. So this is not a bunch of made up theories of random weirdo stuff. The Odinism came from your own investigation. Not something we made up on the internet because we saw some weird markings and some runes mentioned. It was legitimately investigated. So don't come out and get mad at us when we speak about it or theorize or talk about it is in a community with each other. You know, it's crazy.
Yep. Yep. So I'm going to revisit one point.
Okay.
So the state's case in chief, they have multiple witnesses that are not going to be called and whose reports are not going to be presented in evidence that they saw somebody that might have resembled Rick Allen or somebody that parked a car that might have resembled Rick Allen's car somewhere near the scene of the bridge. They can present that, obviously. They have no DNA evidence at the scene of the crime. They have Rick Allen's testimony that places him near the scene of the crime on the bridge, somewhere near the time of death per the state's timeline. But without Rick Allen's testimony, they don't have that. So they
Right.
don't
If
have
he
that.
never told them he was there that day,
Right.
he wouldn't be sitting in jail right now on trial.
Right. And without the DNR officer's testimony or report,
Well,
they don't
what's
have
he
that.
gonna come in there and tell? Okay, on cross-exam, put him on the stand. Let's do that, please. Let me
Okay.
get up there and cross-examine him because I want to know how come you took this statement from this man who told you he was there, told you what he was wearing, told you what he was doing. But for 5 solid years, we got a video and we got sketches out there, and you live here, you see them. You never once remembered, oh yeah, that guy I spoke with, did you speak on the phone? Was it in person? Did you not see his face? If you did, then why didn't it ever dawn on you that guy that told me he was there, he might be worth looking into? Now I'm gonna write a note at the bottom of the page to look at these 3 girls and find out who they were instead. And then I'm gonna forget about it and go home and carry on for 5 years. No, I'm fixing to tear you up on that witness stand. Let me at him.
Yep. Me too. 100%. I would impeach him until he wants to run away with his tail tucked between his legs. Because
I mean, if you're out there and you got this brutal murder and you're in charge of helping get tips,
yep, no,
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, that's no bueno. That
Yes.
doesn't work. So, okay, so
Yeah.
let's cancel that out, and let's just say that's a slight edge to the prosecution, just a slight edge, but nowhere near beyond a reasonable doubt. Nowhere near beyond a reasonable doubt. So then what do we have? We have confessions. Let's go to the 61 confessions, several of which have been reported that have reported facts about the scene of the crime that are not accurate, like being shot with a firearm, like being buried, like being sexually taken advantage of. That's all I'm going to say about that, that are not accurate. So let's say those confessions, which maybe or maybe not should be taken with a grain of salt based upon his mental state at the time of the confessions, having been in solitary confinement for 4 months, which is 3 months longer than the Indiana Department of Corrections standards.
And how come they never approached this man one time and said, are you willing to make a formal confession with your attorney present, with or without your attorney? Do you want to make a formal confession? They couldn't, because he's confessing to random stuff that didn't happen. So if you
Right.
ask him for a formal confessions, in that formal confession, is he going to say, oh, I shot them in the back and I buried him in a shallow grave? Because then you got nothing, because that's not what happened.
Well, not only that, but what's hearsay and what's not hearsay. Like if you report to be an Indiana Department of Corrections guard or inmate, somewhere around the defendant, Richard Allen, at the time where he makes these confessions, and you go and report these confessions, how is that not hearsay?
Well,
seriously, no, how is that not hearsay?
yeah, I mean, I
I
get it.
heard him confessing this. I heard him confessing that. But that's hearsay. That's not direct evidence in
Well, I
any
don't
way,
want to hear
shape,
it
or
from
form.
other inmates. I don't want to hear it because you can, well, actually you can go ahead and bring them inmates in that heard him confessing and let them get on that witness stand and talk about it. I got questions for them too. Go ahead and bring it. Like, I would be that pit bull of an attorney. Bring it. Bring me them people out of the prison that claim he made all these confessions to them. Because now I got a bunch of questions for them as well.
All right.
I think they could absolutely dispute all those. I mean, they're disputable already because they're not accurate. Now, could Rick Allen have been making all that up to, oh shit, I did actually confess. I better change that. Now I'm going to say, oh, I did this and this and this and stuff that didn't really happen. Yeah, possibility, but I'm still going to question those people you gave those confessions to, other than just your wife, because you did it. You confessed to a bunch of people, apparently, other than his wife. So if the confessions are all over the place, how can I take the word of any of those confessions? You know what I mean?
Hey, Salty, do you have
Yeah.
any questions for Dr. Walla?
Oh, yeah. We could probably have a real good I know a lot about what could go on in those woods. I know High Priestess, ma'am, Doug Carter. I say that out loud. I know a lot about what could have went down in those woods. And I understand that hand touching that tree means returning to source. We want to have a stream about that. I'll be glad to hold one.
Right,
I got a lot of
what
questions for
about
Dr. Walla.
but what about Dr.
About
Walla?
the
But what about
mental
his
state?
yes? What about his mental
Yeah.
state during his confessions to Dr. Walla?
Well, the confessions to her, I mean, I got questions for her because she's the doctor. She's supposed to know about mental state and all those and what, I mean, he didn't just only confess to her, apparently. He confessed to the wife and all these other guards and all this stuff. So the ones he made to her, okay, so I need to see what those confessions he made to her said. Did he say to her, I shot him and buried him in a shallow grave? Because we know that didn't happen. So therefore, they're not even relevant. I do have questions for her, but I don't know. They're trying to throw so much shade at her right now. They don't want nobody to believe anything she's got to say anyway. And you know what? If you watch the Letitia Stalk trial and the psychiatrist they put on the stand to back up Letitia's bullshit, that lady looked like the biggest idiot on the planet. And she's a professional. But she looked and said things that didn't make any sense. And she was not believed. That's what I'm telling y'all. When Casey Anthony walked a free woman, because her defense had the better people. They had the better expert witnesses come in and testify. The state blew that case. State of Florida blew that case. It was horrible. So, I don't know. Your experts matter, but I don't know what Walla's going to bring to the table, honestly. I have no clue with her.
I don't think anybody does, because the defense and the state both want to hear from her. But let's look at...
Well, she just needs to get up there and tell the truth, her actual opinion, and not have it be biased toward the defense or the prosecution. If I'm the psychiatrist, and this is legitimately my lifelong job, I'm not going to come in there biased for one side or the other. I'm going to come in there and talk to you seriously about this, the conditions this person was kept in, their mental state at the time, and what this could mean. That's my job. My job's not to walk in there and convince everybody, well, he was in the right mind or in the wrong. Just be honest about it. Can we do that in this country anymore? I don't know.
We all don't know.
Well, both sides would you would think you would want a different expert than what the other side is presenting.
Right. So if
An
so if
opposing opinion.
yes. So if the prosecution presents an expert witness, then the defense should have an opposing expert witness. So Walla is going to be. That's a good question. Is Walla going to be the prosecution or the defense witness?
Well, then isn't the defense the ones filing to try to get her brought in?
I think so. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we saw that because
Yeah.
she lives up in Cook County, Illinois now.
Yeah, we figured that out the other night. Remember?
She's neighbors with Bob and Ali Mata.
Yeah, just like a friend of mine, great research partner. He figured out who the damn professor at Purdue was before they come out and said it. We literally in my Discord, and we're like, okay, there's got to be. Oh, there's only so. We had another friend that went to that college, so he jumps in. He digs up all the professors, and he comes back, and he's like, I'm gonna say it's one of these three, and here's my top one, and it was him. So for like a week and a half, we sat there going, okay, we're pretty sure this is the professor, and here's the name of this guy. And then lo and behold, we were right. So I want to be able to hear from these experts. I don't want to hear about this crap anymore through random filings and we forgot names and we forgot this and we lost this and we lost that. I don't have any faith in you as a prosecution team or law enforcement if you continue to lose or misplace things or not know things that should be well known to your case. It's odd.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to accept it. We're supposed to go, oh, our bad. You're law enforcement and you're prosecution. We understand you lost something. Get it. No big deal. No, it don't work like that. That's not doing those little girls any justice. You've done them wrong by coming out the gate lying, losing interviews, not knowing the names of your professors and all these things. We didn't suffer for it. Abby and Libby have suffered for it for far too long. They knew who did this to them in those woods. They saw them face to face and made eye contact with them. Tried probably like hell to get evidence on them to show you who did it. Now go find them. Find me the missing DNA person before I come do it myself.
All right, Salty, you got to take this for like 90 seconds. I got to go take care of something real quick.
Okay. Oh, he's left me alone for 90 seconds to run this mouth. Hello, woman doing a shadow ban. I've not looked at chat in a minute. I'm sitting here just looking off into space. Welcome in, everybody who come in to listen in. We appreciate it. R&M, I enjoyed your live earlier today. I had to jump out for a little while, but I came back in. Hey, DB. True Great Crime. Welcome in, guys. I know we're all in the same boat, in the same mindset, and we're all feeling the same thing, and this far into this is just so aggravating to all of us. My mind just cannot get away from those girls and what needs to be done for them. And yeah, we're all seeing red, right? I mean, it's so hard, if we could just hear the evidence presented and and I mean, I saw the order earlier on Twitter that they're going to be able to look at those exhibits at the end of the day for 15 minutes. The press is going to be able to review those exhibits. Will they be allowed to photograph them, video, so they can come on the news that night and show us? Or are we just going to have to hear them talk about what those exhibits showed, I guess she thought she was going to do us a solid by letting them come review them for 15 minutes. Here, I'll give you this, and that's all you get. I guess that's better than nothing. Yeah, the media is demanding access to the exhibits, which will be introduced at the trial commencing October 18th. At the conclusion of each trial day, the court will allow the media access to those exhibits for 15 minutes.
Oh my God, I was gone for 90 seconds and you blew up my channel. What the hell?
No, I didn't. Were you gone 90 seconds?
Probably not.
I don't think you were. I don't think you were.
So you're talking about the media access to the court exhibits, right?
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, they'll get the 15 minutes to come in and view them at the end of each day of trial for whatever was presented that day.
Do you have that for me to share?
No, it's actually on Twitter where I'm looking at it. If you go to Twitter, I got this on Fiend's tweet, Phoenix. So I'm sure there's others who have it out there as well. But when I was looking, trolling Twitter earlier, I saw this before you went live.
Strolling and trolling. That's such a fine line.
Yeah. They want to. The media wants to inspect public trial exhibits. It's a public, like R&M said it earlier, public. So that's not just the chosen few. That's everybody. We are the public. We the people. They ever heard of that?
Is that like in the Constitution or something?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Declaration of Independence, maybe?
I mean, I had to learn that stuff in school and memorize it and talk about it.
God, that was so long ago.
It was like some of my favorite subjects in school, though.
We had a U.S. government class, senior year of high school. And we ran a mock Senate where we had to come up with Senate bills for presentation to the class, and the class would, so we would debate them and the class would vote on them. And my sister went through that class 2 years before me, so she clued me into the fact that I needed to have all these bills ready ahead of time, and I had like 6 bills ready to go like day one. So I got like an A+++, but I also pissed off all of my classmates. Like all of my classmates are like, what the fuck, dude? Like, back off just a little.
Right? Let us have a little glory. I don't know. Like I said before, I have followed true crime for so many years. And I've never known a case to be so secretive as this one. I don't understand why they want it to be so secretive unless they're hiding the fact they did a poor investigation and they're embarrassed about it. And the fact that they know somebody else is out there still running around loose.
You know, it can't be. It literally can't be just a poor investigation. It can't be. There has to be some kind of manipulation, conspiracy, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I'm not, but
right. I mean, either.
This case points me in that direction. Like between the state and the local cops being totally out of discord with the FBI and totally coming up with this crazy shit where these 2 sketches are going to be the same fucking suspect. Doug Carter, no. Fuck you. They are not the same suspect. They're not.
They're 2 different people, and it's like now that you've come and said you can't even bring these into court, it's like they are just insulting left and right. It just feels that way. And that's why if I was the family, I'd be a little upset right now if that was my child, because I'm like, what are you guys doing? Either this is or it isn't. Now I would have a lot of questions for them. Whether they would get answered or not, probably not. They're going to tell you, we're doing the best we can. We got this. We promise. Believe in us. And as the family, they're going to want to do that. But, some families have a lot of questions. And were they asking them those questions? And are they asking them those questions now? Especially when they came out and said, we still feel like there's more people involved. That would have been huge to me as the mother of one of these victims. I would have been like, what do you mean you think somebody else is involved? Who are they? Where are they? And why haven't you got them yet? Because they need to be caught too. If you were telling me that the guy you got is one of them, but there's still somebody else out there, why is that person not in jail? And why did I want to know all the DNA samples you collected from your multiple suspects, and I want to see the proof where you ruled out their DNA did not match the DNA at the crime scene.
Well, if there's more than one suspect, and everybody except for 2 law enforcement officials have said there are more than one from day one. So
Yeah.
the only people who have said there's one suspect are Doug Carter and Holman. Holman is the other one that testified under oath. There's only one guy. Everybody else has said there's 2 to 6. So
Exactly. And in the end, it doesn't matter what any of us think. It's going to come down to what evidence they can present in that courtroom and how it can be attacked, right? Because all you got right now is that we know of is this unspent round and his own statement placing him at the bridge. So
Right.
timeline, you're going to have to get me some good experts to challenge that bullet.
let's look at that. Oh, good grief. I have to go. Probable cause affidavit. So this is PCA. We're going down to page 6 of the PCA. There are 8 pages of it, and the 8th page is still suspicious. There are people that have come out with what they say is the 8th page of the probable cause affidavit, and I have yet to have those verified. But anyway, page 6 of the probable cause affidavit. And the laboratory determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of victim 2's body had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's 6-hour model P226. Laboratory remarked, an identification opinion is reached when the evidence exhibits an agreement of class characteristics and a sufficient agreement of individual marks. So we have class characteristics, individual marks. Sufficient agreement is related to the significant duplication of random striated/impressed marks as evidenced by the correspondence of a pattern or combination of patterns of surface contours. This is the most important part of this evidence. So if you throw out the confessions, and some people believe you should, some people believe you shouldn't. Either way, the jury is going to hear them, or some of them, or all of them, or part of them, and they're going to believe or not believe some of them, or part of them, or none of them.
Well, if
After
I'm the
that,
defense, if you're the defense, you're going to bring up the fact that your client also said that they did this to them and that to them that never happened.
right,
Which
right,
now
right,
leads
right.
back to his
Yes,
state of mind. It's
there
very
is a
disputable.
yes,
Yeah.
there is a defense. There is a valid defense to the confessions.
Mhm.
And this isn't about that. This is about the other part of the state's case. So without DNA evidence of Richard Allen being on site, without eyewitness testimony of Richard Allen being on site at the scene of the crime, all they have is the confessions and the tool mark evidence. So
Yes.
this is about the tool mark evidence. The interpretation of identification is subjective in nature.
Yes.
So it's not even objective. It's not even provable potentially beyond a reasonable doubt. So what do you say? What's the difference between subjective and objective? So
subjective is a strong word.
Yeah, so is objective.
Mm-hmm. Look, think I've seen every forensic files known to man that they've ever put out. I
Me
love a
too.
good I love it. Tire impressions and tire treads are like some of my favorite stuff, right? Like I want to know if that peel out mark in front of 1122 King Road matched that Elantra so bad I can taste it. You go over here in Stern's case where his tire blew out and he accidentally left tread at the scene. All these things. These tool markings, that's not even a fired bullet. So this is already a highly disputable area, right? And you're going to be able to present witnesses that can speak against what the state is claiming. I need to hear from both those experts and then in my mind determine which one is more believable to me. And we already know, I've researched these tool marking thing. I research all kinds of evidence stuff all the time, like just chilling out in my bed on my phone. Like if I get something in my head and I don't know enough about it, I'm ready to go learn all I can and I'm consuming all I can for a while. The next thing I knew, hours have passed. I learned all there was to know about what this was. So I know enough now to know this is going to be a highly contested piece of evidence. And I'm not sure they can convince me it came from that gun without solid proof. And you can't just fire the bullet to get the extraction marks because the bullet was never fired. It was just ejected. And those ejection marks from these firearms is highly suggestive and it's not foolproof.
Right. And
not as good as a fired round.
Okay. So the state admits that. That's why I have this highlighted on this warrant, because the interpretation of identification is subjective in nature. The state admits that. They admit it's subjective. So
they admit a lot, but they're still confident.
No, they're not. They're
well,
not
I mean,
confident.
they're trying to portray themselves as that.
No, they're not confident, or they wouldn't file all the motions they file. They wouldn't bluster like they bluster in front
And they
of the,
wouldn't say in their mini
the jury.
opening, do you need DNA and the weapon to help us?
Exactly. Yes. No. The prosecution is not confident. Nick McClelland is not confident. He circumvented the beyond a reasonable doubt in his statements. And Bob Mata talked about this a little bit last night by saying there's a preponderance of confidence or something like that, something crazy that is not the same as beyond a reasonable doubt. And
Nick just knows he needs some pens and paper for his office.
No, he needs he needs a few lines to sell. He needs a few white lines.
Oh, sorry, I was that went down. I was watching R&M's live earlier. We were watching Nick talk about what all he needed for his office and stuff, his budget. He needs pens and paper. Damn it! He can draw us He can draw us some diagrams in the courtroom because he's got some fresh pens and paper. And we don't forget Doug's magic hands. I like to have my visual effects. I need magic hands, and I need Nick to get some new paper and pens.
Are you gonna really make me share that magic hands? Because I've got it. I have to find it, but I've got it.
I'm gonna show him magic hands.
Just so ridiculous.
It's still going to come down in the end to the evidence they have at the scene. I don't care. Yeah, the confessions kind of do matter, but when they're all over the place and there's 61 confessions and the conditions I know those confessions were made under, those are not even no count to me at all. But you can prove or disprove something with the evidence you do have. So I need it, other than just your confessions, what else do you have? The bullet and him saying he was there. Now prove that bullet came from that gun. Even if you do that, did he ever go out there and target practice at some point? Did he ever, because he said he was all, he had been to the trails before. I'm going to ask my client, I may not divulge it publicly or to anybody else, but I'm going to ask my client, hey, did you ever go out there and target practice by any chance? Is there a chance that could be your bullet from 2 or 3 months back, last hunting season, whatever, target practice? I'm going to ask my client those kind of questions. Now, that attorney, you don't have to tell anybody about it. You know, it's attorney-client privilege. But I'm going to ask that question probably. So that way I can use that if I need to. Well, this is an area my client frequented to target practice, so no surprise that an unspent bullet. There's probably got to be some fired rounds nearby, though. Did y'all search that whole area? Was y'all using a metal detector, or was somebody down there digging in the dirt? Because from what we understand, it was a little under the earth, at least 2 inches. You know, it was not just laying on top of the ground for all to see. Not according to them in their own little documents. You know, so was that really the only bullet you found out there? Spent or unspent? I don't believe it would have been. Like, out of those woods, just so happens to be the only bullet in them woods is right there between them 2 girls. So nobody ever went out. We know Westfall's been out there in those woods. He says it in his interviews with Sleuth. What's his name? He says he knows those woods. Yes, I've been in those woods. So have a lot of people, apparently. That cannot be the only bullet out there. So when did that bullet get out there? You know what I mean? There's a lot of questions and ways you could go after that evidence if you're a good defense attorney, in my opinion. Always got to throw that in there because I was so deep in Idaho Forest bullshit for a while. You guys say, in my opinion.
All right, we got the last interview with Superintendent Doug Carter.
Everything that's happened since the initial announcement that came out. First, talk to me about you. Like, this has been something that
His body language is something else.
It's been nonstop. How do you feel with this new development and the direction the case is now going?
I'm peaceful with it. I'm peaceful. That's a word that keeps.
I'm peaceful with it. I'm at peace with it. He kind of muddles his words. That's a deception indicator.
He always does.
And so if I were in front of a television camera and a reporter, I might stumble over my words. I understand that, but this is not his first time on camera.
Coming to my mind when I think about that.
TV and AI bit.
I didn't know what to expect when this finally came.
Looks up to the right.
At least, I'm not going to say it closed.
Looks up to the right again.
To this point, but I feel a sense of peace.
Down to the left.
And how about you?
Lip licking is an indicator. I'll just say that. Lip licking is an indicator.
Your investigators.
Just the way he talks is an indicator.
What was that pep talk like after this arrest came? What did you tell them what was next to kind of keep the morale up and to let them know the investigation is not done?
They propped me up by saying those things.
He loves being put in the limelight. He loves people saying good things about him. Look at this. He loves that. He loves when people say good things about him.
It's because they're not saying too many good things, so he takes it when he can get it.
They're the most extraordinary group of people. They're the ones that were able to say now this work really begins, and they were so energized about it, not in a celebratory way, but in a very focused way on this complex thing that's been going on for now almost 2,100 days. It's an amazing thing to be able to watch.
What, as they move forward, as your investigators move forward, what do they need to keep in mind? Just to keep it safe?
Well, it all changed when the probable cause affidavit was signed by the judge. That changes everything for us. There's very little that we can talk about now. We talked about a lot of things over the course of these last many years, but now we've got to be very, very careful with what we do talk about. But here's what I know. I know that this team of investigators are not going to stop until this is completely over in the courtroom. They're going to be they're going to be so incredibly prepared with all the information that we've received, and they're not going to stop until that period of time comes. This is a different chapter, but we're not to the summary yet of this investigation.
What comes next in the investigation? Where does it go from there?
A very methodical view of everything that we've done up to this point. We've received hundreds of tips since Monday, so there's still going to be a lot of work to do as they move forward. So they're as focused now as they've ever been before.
You had mentioned that you weren't going to retire until this case was solved. Where we are now, where does that statement stand with you? Is that still how you feel?
Wow. I didn't expect that question, I guess. I think the answer now is we're on the right track. And I want to see a conviction. But who knows?
All right. Talk to me a little bit about today's development where the judge has signed an order that will move Richard Allen to state custody for his own safety because of the public's bloodthirst, I'm quoting, bloodthirst for knowledge and information in this case. What do you think about that move of moving Richard Allen to state custody for his protection and the public's want for more information?
Well, I don't blame the public for wanting more information. So since I say that, I hope that they'll give us a little bit of there'll be a little bit of patience back to us. We're not doing anything nefarious here. Everything that we're doing has an absolute purpose. And I wish I could tell this story right now, but I just can't. Shame on me if I would ever do anything that might jeopardize the outcome.
Okay, you can tell it now.
Case, especially one.
What's that?
His story. That's not the first. Oh, my laptop's about to die. I'm going to have to jump off of here and get on my phone. That's not the first time he said he can't wait to tell us everything. Well, now's your chance. I'm going to call you into court, put you on the witness stand. So tell us. Go ahead. All these tips and all this stuff you got and all this information you gathered. Now's your chance. Today's the day, Doug. Right. Now tell us what you wouldn't tell us like when you were doing these interviews. That's not the first time he said that crap.
Look at that. Look at that picture right there. He's like, tell us now.
Joe, I'm going to jump down. I'll come back up in a minute on my phone.
All right. Come on. Okay. I'm going to keep playing.
Right.
Public's bloodthirst, I'm quoting, bloodthirst for knowledge.
Okay, hold on. This is my point about this. I've got the other article somewhere, but the public's bloodthirst for knowledge. Okay, there's no such thing as a bloodthirst for knowledge. There is a pressing thirst for knowledge. There is a heightened thirst for knowledge, but there's no such fucking thing as a bloodthirst for knowledge. We're not going to go out and kill somebody so they will tell us what the Indiana State Police investigated, found as a result of their investigation in this case. We're not killing somebody. That's not a fucking bloodthirst. Jesus Christ. Okay. Sorry. Personal vent, personal rote. We're gonna keep going. That there's no such thing as a media bloodthirst. There's no such thing as a bloodthirst for knowledge. Knowledge isn't bloody. Knowledge is mental. Knowledge is knowledge. Knowledge is education. That's not bloody. You don't have to get bloody for that.
In information in this case. What do you think about that move to state custody for his own safety because of the public's bloodthirst, I'm quoting, bloodthirst for knowledge.
Public's bloodthirst for knowledge. Fuck you.
What do you think about that move of moving Richard Allen to state custody for his protection and the public's want for more information?
Well, I don't blame the public for wanting more information. So since I say that, I hope that they'll give us a little bit of there'll be a little bit of patience back to us. We're not doing anything nefarious here. Everything that we're doing has an absolute purpose. And I wish I could tell this story right now, but I just can't. Shame on me if I would ever do anything that might jeopardize the outcome of a complex criminal case.
Shame on me if I might ever do something that might jeopardize the outcome of a complex case. Yeah, shame on you. Shame on you.
Especially a homicide case. So I'm not going to do that. Moving Richard Allen, I did not know that that's happened, but I would support that completely. Moving him into state custody. They got much more capacity to treat a pre-adjudicated person than most of our local jails in Indiana. I don't mean anything negative about that. They're just small, right? So,
okay, so he just talked about moving the defendant who is in pretrial detention, Richard Allen, from local to state custody. When that was determined by the judge that recused himself shortly after remanding Richard Allen to state custody versus local custody. So you can't tell me that's not a corroborated event. That's not coordinated between the two departments. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that.
No, I'm not opposed to him going there.
I'm not opposed to him going into the IDOC.
But we have a duty to protect him, and that's exactly why I'm sure the judge did that.
Is the public in any kind of danger with this? With investigators still looking for tips? We don't know if there's another suspect out there. We don't know if Richard Allen had an accomplice. So what is the threat to the public these days? Because that's something we're still hearing with the townspeople in Delphi that we are interviewing.
Sure. I think I've not been asked that question yet. I think it's an excellent question. And the answer is, if we felt that there was any jeopardy, just like as we've done from the very beginning of this, we would communicate it. We're not going to be so secretive that if we have information that could cause harm to another person, unless it's one of us, we're going to talk about it. Okay? We're going to talk about it.
I want to talk a little bit about the photograph, the sketches. 2 years into the investigation, after we got the initial sketch, we were told to not rely on that sketch anymore, that this was a new sketch that came out that looked completely different than the original. But when we see the mugshot of Richard Allen, he looks mostly like that initial sketch. So why the change 2 years into someone that didn't look anything like the person that we were presented with on Monday?
Well, I'll answer the question in two parts. One, isn't that amazing? It looks a lot like one, and a little bit like the other, depending upon the eye of the beholder.
Whoa. Isn't that amazing? Let's go back. Since y'all are hanging with me, and I appreciate you hanging with me, this is actually a very, very important point.
Okay? We're going to talk about it.
Okay. What is the threat to the public these days? Because that's something we're still hearing with the townspeople in Delphi that we are interviewing.
Sure. I think I've not been asked that question.
What is the threat to the public? I don't think I've been asked that question
yet. I think it's an excellent question. And the answer is, if we felt that there was any jeopardy, just like as we've done from the very beginning of this, we would communicate it. We're not going to be so secretive that if we have information that could cause harm to another person, unless it's one of us, we're going to talk about it. Okay?
Good question.
We're going to talk about it.
I want to talk a little bit about.
Let me swipe my nose up and down.
The photograph, the sketches. 2 years into the investigation, after we got the initial sketch.
Let's talk about the sketches. 2 years after the initial sketch, there was a second sketch released.
We were told to not rely on that sketch anymore.
We were told not to rely on the initial old bridge guy sketch anymore.
that this was a new sketch that came out that looked completely different than the
Mhm.
original. But
There was a new sketch that came out that didn't look anything like the original sketch.
when we see the mugshot of Richard Allen, he looks mostly like the initial.
We see the sketch. We see the mugshot of Richard Allen. He doesn't look anything like the second guy. He looks more like the first guy.
Sketch. So why the change 2 years into someone that didn't look anything like the person that?
So why the change to the second guy that doesn't look anything like the first guy? And this is the superintendent of the state police in Indiana, the Indiana State Police superintendent.
That we were presented with on Monday.
Well, I'll answer the question in two parts. One, isn't that amazing?
One, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? We arrested a guy that looks kind of like the first guy and looks nothing like the second guy. Isn't that amazing? Like in a good way. Like in a good way. We're telling you, that's amazing. That's amazing. You all should be astounded. That's like David Copperfield to the nth degree. We produce a suspect that looks kind of like the first guy and nothing like the second guy after we told you to ignore the first guy sketch. And isn't that amazing? Woohoo! David Copperfield.
And he looks a lot like one and a little bit like the other, depending upon the eye of the beholder, right? And I've said all along those sketches are not photographs. There are reasons that we structurally, and not structurally, but logistically changed the investigative strategy throughout the middle of this in multiple phases. Some were not even recognized, nor did they have to be. But those detectives are going to base what they're going to do based upon what they know. What they know comes from the people that live in that community and around the world, literally around the world. So I think that was the absolute right decision at the time to do what they did. I've always said that the two sketches are simply sketches, they're not photographs. It's a piece of an investigative puzzle. And when we're all done with this, we're going to be able to meld the two of them together. And we're going to find an individual. That's what happened.
Do you feel that keeping the original one out longer might have helped narrow the time frame of arresting Richard Allen?
Well, you can go up to Delphi right now and find the old sketch still visible up there. And we never said that the old sketch, pay no attention to it, throw it away. We didn't mean it. That's not what we said. But based on information that we had received as time went on, that's why the second sketch was developed. So I don't regret doing that. I think.
What the actual fuck? You have a second sketch that he acknowledges is nothing like the first sketch and just says, we know it's not the same. God, we really have to go over that again because with the motion that the state filed for the defense to not be able to use the sketches, we got to hear this again about the sketches. We got to go over it.
They're going to be so incredibly prepared with all the information that we've received, and they're not going to stop until that period of time comes. This is a different chapter, but we're not to the summary yet of this investigation.
What comes next in the investigation? Where does it go from here?
A very methodical view of everything that we've done up to this point. We've received hundreds of tips since Monday, so there's still going to be a lot of work to do as they move forward. So they're as focused now as they've ever been before.
Till this case was solved.
Bloop, bloop, bloop. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah.
Because of the, what do you think about that move for?
So since I say that, I hope that they'll give us there'll be a little bit of patience back to us. We're not doing.
Okay, we know we're doing something that the general public is kind of be suspicious about. So we just ask for your patience as we give you patience. So don't give us like bad leads, and we won't like give you any false sketches unless we're on TV and they kind of look like Richard Allen. I guess we can do that. Can we agree to that, please?
Doing anything nefarious here. Everything that we're doing.
We're not doing anything nefarious. Why, as the superintendent of the Indiana State Police, would you feel the need to say, we're not doing anything nefarious here? Why would you fucking need to say that? Why would you need to say that? Seriously.
Has an absolute purpose. And I wish I could tell this story right now, but I just can't. Shame on me if I would ever do anything that might jeopardize the outcome of a complex criminal case, especially one
Salty, get up here.
Case.
I can't handle it by myself.
Moving Richard Allen, I did not know that that's happened, but I mean, I would support that completely. Moving him into state custody. I got much more capacity to treat a pre-adjudicated person.
Salty.
Hey, I'm here. I'm listening.
I can't handle Doug by myself. He's too much.
And what he just said is complete opposite. I just heard him say, now you're about to review it again, what do y'all want? We're not saying throw the sketches away, but yeah, you are right now though. So yeah, I'm play that again. I'm listening.
For crying out loud. Not for you, for him. Like he tests my patience.
I just can't. Shame on me if I would ever do anything that might jeopardize the outcome of a complex.
Shame on me for doing anything that might jeopardize the outcome. All right. Shame on you. You got shame, dude. You got lots of shame.
Criminal case.
He says things he shouldn't be saying right there.
So I'm not going to do that. Moving Richard Allen, I did not know that that's happened, but I mean, I would support that completely.
He didn't know that happened?
Bullshit.
Yeah, I call bullshit.
Yep. He's the superintendent of the ISP, and he doesn't know where a murder suspect is being transferred to. Right. Okay, dude. Whatever.
Moving him into state custody. I got much more capacity to treat a pre-adjudicated.
How many times did he say to treat?
Too many.
Person than someone.
And then he did the thumb roll. He absolutely knew that Richard Allen was being transferred into IDOC custody. He absolutely knew it. Why would you feel the need, as the superintendent of the Indiana State Police, to deny that you knew that a suspect was being transferred into IDOC custody? Why would you feel the need to deny that? Because maybe there's something else going on. Maybe. I'm not saying there was. I'm just saying maybe you might like thumb your nose at the camera.
Than most of our local jails in Indiana. I don't mean I would support that completely.
Here you go. Watch this.
Moving him into state custody.
Moving
more capacity to treat a pre-adjudicated person than someone.
Thumb your nose.
Than most of our local jails in
He
Indiana.
knows. He already knows.
I don't mean anything negative
He's
about
full
that.
of
They're
shit.
just small, right? So no, I don't have it. I'm not.
He did it again. He touched his nose again.
Everyone's is innocent until they're proven guilty, but we have a duty to protect him, and that's exactly why I'm sure the judge did that.
All right.
Is the public in any kind of
How far are we
danger
going down this
with
rabbit
this,
trail, Salty?